Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bevvies with the Boys. I'm Munchables. I'm joined by Dagda. We are the boys, and tonight we have a very special episode where we have the two veteran casters of EU, two of the absolute legends of the LEC/EU LCS. We've got Deficio and Quickshot, the lovers reunited once more. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. How are you guys doing? Is this the first time you guys have spoken in the last few years? Like, do you speak outside of broadcast?
In public? In public?
Yeah. Trevor sends me drunk WhatsApp voice messages. He's crying and screaming.
I wish it wasn't true, but it is true. But yeah, we haven't had a public appearance since Martin left me for the extremely failed venture of being some sort of coach or manager or something.
Why do people think I'm a coach, man? We can have the failed part in there. That's fine. But like, I wasn't a coach. I don't know why people even think that.
I think, well, the standard colorcaster thing is to become a coach, right? So I think people kind of drew the lines as opposed to actually reading the announcement more than anything else.
See, that does make sense. However, I kind of knew this would come up, like not the failed part. Well, actually, I knew that too. But the coach caster part. I think it took me 2 weeks of preseason initially. When we started practicing, to realize, how different the stuff you're looking at when you're trying to be a color caster and like what you want to talk about in the game and on the analyst desk, how different it is from the way a professional team actually talks and looks at the game and what they consider interesting. So yeah, I ended up taking a backseat very quickly. I knew that from the start would be the case, but I was surprised by how quickly I was like, okay, I'm behind. I'm like really far behind compared to actually what I used to look at. So it's very different.
That's really interesting. I would love to dig more into that, but let's do some quick intros first because we never properly introduced everyone. I wanted to do a quick whip around, and as is customary on the show, we'll go around kind of give yourself a little bit of an intro for anyone in the audience that doesn't know you, and also let us know what you're drinking tonight. So, Quickshot, we'll start with you.
If anybody doesn't know who I am, what the fuck are you doing?
I'll be very surprised if nobody.
Nice ego.
I'm Quickshot, Trevor Henry, South African, shoutcaster for the league since 2012, and I'm currently drinking my poison of choice, Captain Morgan's dark rum and Diet Coke with a few squares of ice. Some people call it a Cuba Libre somewhere, but that's just an awful name. It's a rum and Coke. It's the only thing you should drink. And yeah, that's it.
Nice. Deficio, what are you up to tonight, and what are you up to these days even?
So Deficio casted with Trevor, I guess back in the day, starting 2014. Before that, I was a very unsuccessful pro player. Biggest achievement there was getting my team into the LCS to then have the longest losing streak for a couple of years. I think it was 0-9 as Copenhagen Wolves. Then I became a caster 2014 and went to the team side 2 years ago, Trevor? Yeah. 2019 when the franchise started.
Yeah, you left me in 2018.
That's true. Worked with the Origin, got them into the LEC together with Astralis at the time, and now director of Misfits Europe. So I'm switching titles up, hoping that will make it sound fancier.
Titles change all the time.
Exactly.
In esports. Like you actually, you can't really trust them.
I'm just a water boy, but I like the title.
Fair enough.
Also, I'm drinking this Michela's special Christmas beer because I was told we have to drink beer, and then Trevor apparently brings rum and Coke.
Well, a bevy is a beverage.
There's no stipulation on.
I was told beer. I can find the email, and definitely says beer.
Okay, well, if there was, that was Rob's fault, not my fault, so he can take all the blame for that one. Rob, what are you?
I will get a beer later.
Yeah.
What are you on, Rob?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, his headset's
I've gone crazy. I'm on Peroni at the moment, but I'm drinking it out of a Birra Moretti glass, so I feel like I'm a little bit of a traitor for the Italian beers. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Nice. And I'll finish this off. I was in the shop and I was browsing what to get, and I ended up with a Corona. And the reason for that is not just for the meme, but I realized their sales must have absolutely tanked. And I like this beer, so I felt like I should support this company because I like this beer. So
or have they just got decades worth of free marketing? Because while it may suck for this year, imagine in 3, 5, 10 years, once the vaccine is out and everyone talks about the impact that they had, maybe it'll come full circle and they'll, not have to pay for marketing for a while.
Could be like the Corona you always loved.
Yeah,
Something
there you
like
go.
this.
See what I mean?
See, this is why he's a director.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe. Well, for now, I'm going to be on the credit anyway. So let's start off by, I feel like we should have a little walk down memory lane and talk EU LCS, talk about kind of you guys, how you became friends in the first place and the development of that friendship. Because obviously, there's always a public side and a private side to everything, but I know you guys are good friends beyond just on broadcast, or at least that was my understanding.
We were. I mean, we were until he broke up with me. Until I think it was definitely like a workplace. It was a workplace respect that turned into a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, traveling around the world to the different events, to the different roadshows that we had, and at the time having to share room with Martin was definitely an eye-opening experience. And I think the two of us on camera, we both have elements of our real personality that you obviously can't let loose on camera, right? And there's a professionalism you bring to the office and to the show. But the two of us, like when we're on the road and giving each other shit and the banter, it never stopped. Even to this day, it doesn't stop. Before we jumped on the call, the first thing that Martin did was insult me. And it's been that way for the entire time I've known him. Yeah,
Well, I think if we go really far back, obviously Trevor was originally one of the first, shoutcasters when LCS got announced, and before that he was the South African famous for,
spell
being hyped from his living room, who knew all the spell names, and he would cast everything in the European scene.
Yeah.
Like all the trash tournaments, like
Everything.
Trevor's name would just be attached to it. And it was spelled in that really stupid FPS way with the 1 and stuff instead of an I. So I knew of him because he was casting all these different things. And I got to play in some of them at least. Never too successfully, but at least we got to play some games against like M5 in like a DreamHack qualifier, quarterfinal, or something like this that he would cast. So I knew of him, and obviously when we got into the LCS, he was there as one of the original color casters together with Jason Kaplan. Which again is a name. Yeah, so probably very few League of Legends fans will probably remember that name, but there'll be a few old schoolers.
Thank God.
And what
cast
happened
a bunch with him in FPSs actually, just because we
were
both
so you
ESL.
know him.
Yeah,
you know him.
It was
then.
the dark times for me.
It was a long time ago, and Trevor again still was mainly famous for being able to pronounce every spell name. He just remembered all the spell names.
It was a much simpler time, dude.
Yeah, it was very
much
simple.
like that's what counted as analysis back then for most people.
It's true. But what happened in that first year, which I think built relationships at least somewhat, and which also led to me eventually becoming a caster next to him, was that in Cologne, the broadcast team and the players and the managers, there weren't any coaches back then, so the managers, they would all after shows go and hang out, at a bar in Cologne, and naturally people would talk a lot to each other. So, you got to know all the casters, even if you weren't friends with them, right? You got to know them. And I do think that definitely made it easier when then someone from Riot randomly calls you and tells you, hey, do you want to fly to Cologne and practice cast with these guys to see if you have like any sort of skill within this field? I probably would never said yes to that if I didn't actually know, Trevor and D-Man at the time, who was the other guy who was practice casting with me initially. And I think like that kind of thing really helped establish a very tight esports group, which then led to other things.
I've got very fond memories of the player conferences. Now, I don't think I did too many sessions with your team and the Wolves back at the time, but basically like the shoutcasters would be brought into some of the sessions with the teams to either do interview training or on-camera training. And over the years, it eventually evolved into like brand advice and how to speak to journalists and things like that. But I distinctly remember that when I would do interview practice with certain teams, At the time, SK and Ocelot was one where the first like connection I had with Ocelot was he said, "Look, I'm good at interviews. Give me a hard interview." And I was a douchebag, an absolute douchebag. So we have the whole setup. It's on stage, and my first question is, "Do you care more about money than your teammates?" And his face just dropped, and I was like, "Dude, you asked me hard mode." So I went in, and afterwards he kind of like squared up to me, and I was like, hey, just before anything, like, you said hard mode, right? And like we kind of bonded in that way.
Yeah.
And I remember one of these like sessions we went, and you always do like a team building thing. We went to go-karting. I don't know if you remember doing that one, Deficio.
Mhm.
And I was sat on the bus next to Bjergsen, and we just had like a huge heart to heart. And the Quickshot Bjergsen romance started on a random bus to go-karting. But actually, yeah, I forgot about all the Boogaloo sessions and how many random conversations you had with everybody. And the thing was cool is it wasn't just league people. There would be Counter-Strike pros that would rock up from time to time. There'd be FIFA events. Like there was a pub in Cologne that just everyone went to after a show, and it was like a really cool experience.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories of that same pub from Uber, if you guys know him, the guy that went on to do Overwatch
Yeah, of
later down
course.
the line. Because he was at
Got
ESL
to meet him there.
in the same time period, right? So he would have been probably going to those same nights. But
I think he just came to ESL like 2014 or something. The last year we were in Cologne, and
Yep.
we got to meet him that way.
Yeah.
And he was casting with some of the different people there.
because he
God, I
did
feel like
leave.
such a baby in esports compared to you three.
I mean, that was before my time as well. I only joined ESL in 2015, I think. So, but I was still very much a fan back in those days. But I now
That's
know
just
in
as-
hindsight.
Just as we moved to Berlin, actually, that was the first year that the relocation happened, and
Yeah.
we were shitting our pants because, like, by this
Mhm.
point now, Martin and I had worked together for 2 years. I was still doing quote unquote color, and only at international events was I able to go to do play by play, and that was something that I'd been pushing for and I really wanted to do. But at the time, D-Man and Joe were covering EU LCS, so they were just like, "Hey, we've got like two of the best in the business. Good luck." And the move to Berlin, both of them declined the offer, and I was able to kind of land on my feet in the role I was supposed to be doing. And I think that was a big growing up year, definitely for me, and I think probably for Martin as well. And we both kind of had to really refocus on the job and be like, well, it's kind of our show now, obviously with Shocks as well, as the old kids on the block, having done it for 2 years or 3 years. Like we were still really fresh faced in the grand scheme of things.
I don't know if we actually talked about this publicly. Maybe we did, but when we swapped over to Berlin in 2015, it was the worst European league year ever, right? Like it was the one where Alliance got kaboomed. Fnatic was like cyanide misclicking an auto attack on the Nexus away from making out of groups. So all three European teams in 2014, had failed for the first time. The year before, Fnatic had made semis. The year before that, M5 were favorites to win the whole thing, lost in semis as well. So it was a horrible year. And I remember also the general feeling around just the broadcast and 2014 EU LCS was pretty negative. Like the games weren't very exciting. There was just generally a lot of criticism for a lot of things. Like I was always getting flamed left and right because I was just sitting in there and with a potato in my mouth and no one understood what I was saying. So that was getting flamed. I'm sure Trevor got flamed. I don't remember, but I'm sure he got flamed as well. Actually, I did remember. I just didn't want to say it. So,
I know. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It made me feel better, but no, it's
so there's just a lot of negativity. And then Riot were like, they dropped the bomb on us there, and they were like, okay, hey, we're gonna swap it over. We're gonna move over to Berlin. Here's the reasons. And the casting team obviously just kind of cut in half. Because as Trevor said, the two guys didn't want to follow, and we started the year in Berlin in this tiny office in the middle of Berlin. I just remember how cold it was, and everything was new, and there wasn't anything there because the Riot office hadn't been set up yet. And it was just Trevor and myself and Shocks, as he said. Like that's it. That was literally the broadcast. There was no one else. And we tried to hire people, but it took some time, and we were going to get Pyra, and then he needed to get his visa, which also would take time, so he wouldn't be there for week 1. And I believe that was the time where we were supposed to get Excandrel in to join as a colorcaster, but then he had to stay another year for his studies. So we ended up not getting him either. And we legitimately started week one's broadcast with 2 casters, one guy who just swapped over to play-by-play, one guy with a potato in his mouth, and then Shocks on the analyst desk with whoever we could get as a guest, like
As
any
many players
person.
as possible. 80
Yeah.
players.
It's just any player. If you just want to get on and just say like 10 words or something, just get on. Like, just do it. We just need someone.
Yeah.
That was literally the start of our broadcast. And we just had Europe with a terrible 2014 competitive year as well. So it was a weird preseason. And yeah, a lot of nerves, I think, going into week one.
Did it help you guys to kind of like be in that together? Because obviously there's only the 3 of you that are getting a lot of shit tossed your way. Like, did it help you form together where you're like, fuck these guys, we got each other's backs? Or was it just like stress constantly? Because I know you're laughing about it now, but it's got to be tough at the time.
In retrospect, yes. And if anybody's watched any of the supplementary content that we've done at the LEC over the last year or two, Ifya and I were not friends at the time. We did not get along very well, and to date, there's nobody on this planet that doesn't like Martin. He's just one of the he's just the most. No, like, there are people who don't like things you have done. That's different to disliking you as a person, right? And it was interesting because, like, at the time, I don't think Martin and I don't think we realized what was coming, what was going to happen, right? And like when you're in the thick of it, you're struggling so much just to make the best show possible, to be the best version of yourself, to deliver the best cast, to be the most prepared, while simultaneously like building an office, trying to hype. Like, we were doing interviews together. The 2 of us in 2015 were not qualified to be running interviews to hire people without like oversight, right? It was like the 2 of us in a room talking to people, and then they'd leave and we'd be like, they were great, and we talk stuff and they go, but well, how did they answer this, and this? We're like, oh, they were bad. No, we're like, we had no clue, right? And it's only once you get through it all, and once you have a few like really spectacular moments, and most of that spring split I don't remember. I remember not having Pyro at the beginning, and then I remember not having a second color caster, and that I would have to flip between play-by-play and color because we just didn't have enough people on the same show day, and I'd never have to do that before. But ultimately, what I remember from spring of 2015 was the Madrid finals and the stadium and the fans, and all of that other crap just went by the way because all we did was look forward, and all we did was try to figure out what was the right thing to do at the time, and that was like the North Star or the guiding light.
So I remember. Sorry, it's just we're talking too much here, but
no.
2015.
I'm actually glued to this conversation. I'm so interested because I was still a viewer at this point, and I was obsessed with the EU LCS. So this is super interesting for me.
Okay, so let me ask: did you guys remember, like, going into week one of spring, how Fnatic had died, right? Xpeke had left, soaz had left.
Yeah,
they had to rebuild. It was this completely new Fnatic.
This is Huni Reignover.
Yes, and Reckless had left as well.
Yeah.
Reckless had gone to Elements to form the super team.
Remember Pushu?
Oh yeah, and was it Steelback?
It was actually Steelback. Pushu was 2 years before that. Trevor's he's thinking 2013.
Because Pushu was like the stand-in while Reckless was too young for LCS. Right? I was a Fnatic mega fan at this time.
Yeah, so this coming into this, I actually had a conversation with Shocks about this recently. I found some of our old notes heading into the season, and one of them was that like we had effectively lost our like star players, and it was impossible to predict who would actually be the best team now, who are the big stars, except for like Elements was the one you wanted to hype because it was Froggen, Reckless, Shook, Wicked, this kind of team, right? So there was a lot of hype around them. They stolen Reckless. Imagine stealing Reckless from Fnatic. Who does that? You got to be crazy in the head. Anyway, day one, where all this kicks off, I've actually rewatched the game. I don't know why, just to see how stupid me and Trevor looks, and like just to follow it. And this, and it's the Huni game, where it's his first one, and all we had been told was there was this kid from one of the training teams in Korea who had been signed together with Rainover, who was famously called Game Over at the time because he was such a bad jungler in Korea. That was his nickname. Who came over to this weird Fnatic team without Reckless, without Peke, without Soaz. And I just remember having zero expectations for them, and they were just going to get stomped by Elements. And oh my god, we lost all these star players. This really sucks. Peke is in Challenger Series with Origin. What's happening? And then Huni just like murders Elements in this game. Like he just like takes over the game from like laning phase. And we just got so excited, and the viewers just got so excited from literally game one of like, yes, Fnatic are still good. Who are these guys? Are insane. And it just kickstarted everything. I feel like that actually made it such a sick spring split, with also Unicorn to Love coming in for the first time, playing crazy League of Legends that Monte Cristo hated, and he was the big guy at the time who would flame unicorns.
But also the jungle item meta as well. The fact it was being used on solo lanes as well, and like the ridiculous builds that were hugely popular. What was the yellow smite item called?
Satan Devourer.
Yes, gave you a little puppy that would follow you around. So like cute. I love that thing.
Oh man, God, those are the days. I remember watching this split and like, because as I've said, I was a Fnatic fan at the time, and I remember that team exploding and just being like, oh God, we're so doomed, and having no expectation for Huni and Rainover. And then this team just came out of nowhere and just like, I don't think anyone expected it, but the level of excitement, and I was still very much, there was this air around that Fnatic team of just magic, where it was like, I don't know who these players are. Like, I don't know why this is working, but this is the most glorious thing I've ever seen. And I'm wearing my Fnatic jersey, and it was just like, I'm just going to ride this wave, baby, because who cares why they're winning? They're winning, and that's all that matters. It was, that was a magical time in EU
I mean,
LCS.
that entire speech you just gave summarizes the entirety of MSI as well. Because we went to fucking Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
A university town, right? FSU, Florida State University. Fear the spear. Without a single university student on campus. It was like a ghost town, right? God. And it was just the timing of MSI did not fall in season for the campus and the town. And like, it was lovely. It was just barren. There was no one there except for the few league people and the fans in that stadium. And then Fnatic pushed SKT to 5 games. Huni played Cassio and Lucian top, blew everybody's minds. Rainover, I think there was a Gragas bug through one of the walls as well, if I recall correctly, in like game 3 or game 4 of that series. And then EDG go on to beat SKT in the final. Like that journey, that ride from how Martin just described our spring split starting without enough people to finish the show, to then having like an EU team going 5 games against SKT, like it was a spectacular 6 months, only to then be topped by Origin qualifying for the summer season, the 18-0 Fnatic into a 5-game fight. Like in retro, nobody could ever have known how spectacular that year was going to become in European history. And it was probably one of the most exciting years for European League of Legends, ultimately, with 2 of the least experienced people trying to figure shit out along the way, bumping their head on every single door, you know? Like, it was such a foundational year for me personally, but then also for Martin, also for EP, also the whole EU LCS crew who were finding their feet in Berlin. And we had some tech challenges, we had some problems, you know? It was a bumpy ride.
But it led to, yes, you said, the final in Spain in spring, initially, where we had, now that we're talking about Trevor and myself, and like kind of, I guess what elevated that from a brand perspective is obviously where we had 5-game series, Unicorns versus Fnatic. It was supposed to be a 3-0 stomp for Fnatic. Unicorns came out swinging. They played Varus mid lane in the first game, full lethality, and smacked. And this was supposed to not be a thing. And I remember, because at the time, I don't follow as many Twitter analysts anymore, so I don't fully know how it is these days as it was back then. But back then there were a lot of very opinionated people on Twitter, and they were very
Yeah,
aggressive.
It's not changed. It's not changed.
Okay, still the same, fair enough. But like they were very aggressive about what was right and what was wrong. And as a color caster as well, if you said like one wrong word about something, you would just get like bombarded with tweets about how fucking wrong it is and how dare you say Varus is supposed to build this item when he built that item instead. I'm gonna murder you and blah blah blah. So it's very aggressive times. But I remember before the game had started, before the series, I was in makeup with Power of Evil. He was sitting next to me in makeup, and we were just chatting. And he brought up this Varus thing to me, and he was like, "Yeah, you know, Varus, I actually think it can work mid lane." So I like ran back to my PC after, and I started like just looking at Varus solo queue builds. I was like, Varus mid lane, okay, what can it be? What can it be? What can it be? And I noticed like the trend of the lethality build. I think it was Ghostblade Rush or something like this. So when he picked it, I instantly was like, "Oh, that's gonna go mid lane," and he's gonna build like Ghostblade, lethality, something. I don't think it was called lethality at the time. Armor pen,
No.
maybe.
Yeah, it was
penetration.
brutalizer, right?
Yeah,
And,
Brutalizer.
yeah, exactly. I was like, and he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that, and then people were like, "Whoa, how did he know? That was insane!" So that like instantly built some credit in that final. And then the Trevor Kiss Me moment happened after as well, which people also really liked. And I think that ended up like the final itself was hype, and then the cast itself had some memorable moments between us, and I think that created a super positive snowball around a split where we were underdogs as casters, as a region. People really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic final show. Great arena in Spain as well, with the crowd just going absolutely nuts. And I think that just set us up to succeed then for the rest of the year as well, which obviously ended up just being better and better and better.
Do you know,
So, yeah.
something that only kind of dawned on me very, very recently is that Martin and I never actually had a serious conversation around like, hey, you know, so what are we going to do? What is our style? Like, we just kind of figured it out together. And I think there was such a high level of trust because we both went through the same levels of shit. And when we were on camera, we were both disliked a fairly equal amount. And at times he was hated more than I was, and I would swap. But like, you know, we were in the trenches together. And it's only in retro where you look back and you're like, you know, at no point did I ever go, Martin, what are you doing? Or I don't really trust the direction you're taking me. Like I'm skipping way far ahead, but like the spank me moment, we get feedback, right? One of our producers, the guy who directs our show, his name's Jack, and he just gets very creative. He's got a very, very creative mind. And he'll message us in our head. He's like, "Hey guys, I've got this cameraman. Look, number 13 will be over your shoulder, so just wave at him." Now we've done this for years, right? And all sorts of stuff, but like, there's only so many over the shoulder looks you can do. So Martin turns to me and goes, "You know, what if you spank me? Ha ha." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." Now I didn't intend to hit him as hard as it actually did, and like the genuine surprise that is in the screenshot that supported this is because I smacked him. Like I went as hard as I could. And at no point did I didn't even question it. He literally made a joke and I'm like, I'm in. I'm following you. Like, come on, I'm down. And that's kind of defined everything. You know, Martin just turns to me and was like, Trevor, kiss me. Because a couple are like hardcore making out in the little picture-in-picture. I don't know what to say. And I just burst out laughing. My knees go weak. On one side, we've got a German producer going, "Get that off screen. What's going on?" And the other side, Martin's like, "Hey, do you want to kiss me?" And all the fans are losing it. We're just like, why is this our job? Like, how did we get this lucky? You know?
Yeah.
But anyways, it just boils down to like, we trusted each other and we followed each other no matter where the hell we were going.
That was sorry, go
a little bit of like, sorry, it was just, there was a little bit of like, fuck it at this stage, we're already getting all the feedback, we're just going to go for it? Or was it just like, you know what, we're lost in the moment, we're just mates, let's just go for it? Where did it come from?
I think it's more the second one. I think so at least for me, the first year when I was getting hard flamed, like permanently, I was super scared to do anything. Like I didn't want to risk anything, right? I didn't want to say something wrong. I didn't want to try and do something that could be funny, and then maybe people didn't like it because they already like were very negative. So I remember the first, like if you go back, you can't find a single highlight from me in the first year. Like I don't think you can find a single one. Where once things got more positive and you started building up at least some support, I think it allows you a lot more to start being yourself, and you can take some chances. Like, it can both be in a serious way of like, recently at Worlds, there was, for some weird, useless reason, this whole debate around Shox's Reckless segment, if you guys remember that, which was a perfectly fine segment. I have no idea why people thought that was such a bad thing or whatever people were arguing. But I think that's something you don't do. You don't pull that out in the middle of Worlds if you're not really like confident in yourself, and if you don't feel like, okay, I'm gonna try this, let's do it, I make it in the moment, boom, serious segment. I think it can work. You don't do that if you don't have confidence, if you don't feel like you have support behind you. And I think that was the first year, at least for me. Maybe it was the same for you, Trevor, in the start, I don't know. But I just remember doing that spring split, we started loosening up more, and you could be more yourself. And it also felt like the fan base that we built with the new LCS, the new EU LCS, with the new players, some of the new teams, when we were the underdogs, we became part of that group of fans who just liked watching this. And I hope those fans felt like we were just part of this community with them. We weren't above them or anything. So I think you just naturally started realizing, hey, a lot of people actually find this kind of funny. They like this style. And then you start maybe doing it more because this is who you are. And now you just feel like you can actually do it.
See, there's something to build onto that. It's actually something that I've intentionally built in how I coach and sort of mentor the other shoutcasters that I've worked with over the years, is that number one, you have to be authentic, right? You have to be yourself. And you can't be entirely yourself because we produce content for sponsors and fans. And like, not every joke and word and idea that pops into your head can make it on camera, especially if you have a sense of humor like Martin Deficio Lunga. However, right, when you are authentic and when you are yourself and you do some of the silly things, what I always say to everybody, and this is advice for any job, for any person anywhere in the world, you have to build up good credits. And once you build up good credit, you spend some of that credit doing some risky things, right? And if you don't have a foundational setting that people know you and trust you and understand your content, if you take a shot in the dark and miss and nobody knows who you are, that's your first impression, right? You can ruin your entire career. However, if people know you and trust you and come to expect a certain baseline and they go, oh, this is an experimental joke, or this was a bold idea, it didn't really work out, you kind of got that like safety cushion. And that also means you don't back to back the crazy, silly ideas or the over the top, in between some of the silliness. Like, we had very serious casts, we had very emotional moments, we had very silly moments, and you kind of need to find that balance. And over the years, we've come to learn to do this more deliberately. But at the time, like, to answer the question, it was just, we were trying to do the best that we could. Martin and I have always read far too many comments on Reddit and Twitter, and very fortunately, the two of us, have been able to filter the absolute flame and the hate to take stuff that's actionable. But the two of us for a very long time had an unhealthy relationship with reading every single thing. But that also, it's part of the fuel that drives you to get better, right?
But hey, we can turn this on you guys.
I was about to say, that just sounds like me and Rob right now.
So I didn't mean the Reddit flaming stuff, but I meant more like.
Well, thanks for that, Deficio.
I meant more the whole, like, you guys have really been building up, like, this year more than probably ever with the LPL broadcast, and I feel like you're maybe taking a little bit of the same thing that we did back in 2015. So I guess I can ask the exact same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of slowly but surely been building up, and I think the biggest thing was myself and Munch lived together when we were over in Shanghai. So we definitely just kind of built a somewhat similar relationship to yourselves, where we kind of trust each other. I know where his humor is at, he knows where I'm at. And then from that, we just literally sat in the apartment for like an hour just chatting absolute nonsense. And then every so often we'd have like maybe 10 seconds of a conversation that goes onto the show, and the rest of the time is just utter nonsense.
There was a lot of time spent in that flat where Rob would be sat. So there's like when the room is like a big L shape, right? And Rob's desk is kind of in the middle of the L. My desk is all the way at this end, and then there's like kind of a living room space over here. Rob would be sat at his desk, like turned around on his chair, and I would like pace all the way along and all the way back along this L. And we would just have these intense conversations about the teams and about whatever, and it would like tangent in whatever ways it needed to tangent. And it's like with the LPL, you have so many games, and a lot of them really suck. Like the good LPL stuff is amazing. The bad LPL stuff is utter garbage. And like some of the games, like when you've got a big team that's on a win streak against one of these teams that literally hasn't figured out how to lane swap for Herald yet, you know, this kind of stuff. It's like there is so little to talk about. Like trying to figure out what narratives we want to push, like which players we want to build up for these teams. It's very, very difficult. So we'd have these huge conversations where we'd basically spend a whole afternoon with like the matchups that we had, and we just had a week of terrible matchups. So we were like just like trying to plow it out. And the fact that we got to live together and just it was kind of just hanging out with a mate having a beer, but that turned into a
podcast.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe we should podcast it next time. But like, yeah, that turned into like a very productive way for us to approach it. But also, like, I think those conversations helped us build a very good relationship personally.
Dude,
as well.
everything you've just described, I think is kind of the job of a shoutcaster. Because Martin and I, like, we've done that. I went straight to the double stream world of EU LCS. Do you know how many times Martin and I, and the rest of the broadcast team as well, like all of our producers and the rest of the team would be like, fuck. How do we make Friday exciting? You know?
Do you remember there was for one game, I think it was during the double stream, Rocket at the time they were terrible. And their top laner, nice guy from what I remember, Foxy.
Conde.
Good old Foxy. We were trying to find like narratives for the game. We were just like, what are we going to talk about? I remember we went into the stats and we found that so they had been losing like every game except for one, and he played Rumble in that game. It was his only Rumble game, but he went like 11-0 on it or something like this. So we literally just to try and find something, we actually took that and going into the pick and ban phase, our only prepared graphic for this game, it was on the B stream if I remember correctly.
It was?
Our only prepared graphic for that was a graphic of Foxy on Rumble. Is just super good compared to everything else. So we want him to play Rumble. That was our prep, and then the game just started, and then he didn't even play Rumble. I think he ever played it again. So, but I get the thing you guys are talking about. You guys just have way more games.
Like
I remember
shoehorning a stat in just because it's all you got. Yeah.
Myself and Hysterics for one of the days. It like right at the end of the split, game didn't matter at all, and I know it was Suning and I think it was LGD maybe. But it was still going to be a fun game. But like, it just didn't matter. We knew that both teams were going to mess around. But both players that played Skarner. Oh, that's what it was Oscar night. Because basically, if LGT, whoever lost, got the better seeding in regional finals, like the easier side of the bracket. So technically, they wanted to lose. So we went in and were like, we can't come up with anything. These teams are not going to play properly. But they both played Skarner. So myself and Hysterics decided that we're going to plaster the faces of the two junglers onto Skarner and then just make Scorpion King jokes and the Rock like quotes the entire way through the broadcast. And it was just us like quoting, "You're a jabroni, why are you there?" for the entire way through the broadcast.
You gotta find some stuff like
this.
Yeah. Good. We definitely had some interesting segments this year on LPL, but we're very
Fight Night was fun.
We've been kind of fumbling our way through it and just seeing what works. Like we did one called Fight Night where we tied ties around our heads because the idea was like these two teams were gonna brawl. That was the idea. It was
IG and
IGLG
WE. So
prop comedy. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of growth to be made in prop comedy. So I'm already on board. I remember the photos. I saw the photos.
That was my profile picture on Twitter for a while.
This is interesting because I feel like this happened after my time, where
because you don't move. You're like you're a sloth.
I'm not saying it's related to me. I'm not saying it's related to me. I'm just saying that it feels like right now, as a broadcast, you need to be able to make funny sketches. You need prop comedy.
Our broadcast.
No, but like LPL broadcast too, right? As an example, I think we've seen it in a lot of different broadcasts. And back in the day, it was super rare. Like people still remember the two shins from Monty and Doa, right? That's something that happens every week now in the LEC, basically.
Yeah.
I think Bevvies is never just Bevvies, right? He's always someone else, almost every single broadcast.
Weaponized cringe from the expanded Bevvies universe. That is the official terminology.
It's a new meta of broadcasting. I even see it on other games now as well. A lot of people are taking advantage of it. And of course, it was done before. It's just done way more. And the fans really, really love it. So I think you guys also doing it makes perfect sense. I will admit I haven't followed the broadcast too much this year, so I don't know why Reddit loves you guys now. You're gonna have to explain that to me. But
I mean, if they could explain it to us first.
Yeah,
you don't even know what.
20.
Oh, okay. Well, everyone loves the OPL broadcast, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
The good thing is it goes back to what we were saying about it's like if you do stuff with like genuine, with a level of genuineness, that's not the right word, but like if you're true to yourself, if you guys find something funny and you fully commit to it, then it works, right? And I think what is really, really cool is that the audience has evolved and grown up with us, right? And 5 years ago, 8 years ago, the broadcast just had to be professional and clean.
It's so boring, dude.
The industry wasn't where it is now, right? And in order to convince people, like even within Riot Games, that it's worth spending money on this stuff, like there's a level of preppiness that you kind of have to show.
Yeah.
But then as fans and viewers have grown up, and like if you think about it, I've been casting since 2012, 8 years old. 8 years. There are still a very small section of people who are like, I watched you in 2012. And I know where I was at 2012. I was a child, and I've grown a lot. I can only imagine what fans and viewers have, but then so do tastes, right? And so does everything else. So you figure out the nuances of what your viewers are, what your players are, and cater to them, and then you've got a good product.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I don't know how it is in the LPL story meetings. I remember ours back in the day in 2014, 15, at least 14 and like the early years. They were so serious, man. Like everything was just like, when I started, we wrote the entire script, like all of it. Like everything that was going to be said in the intro was written down, all. And we had to like go through everything. We had to like rehearse it. We had to, read through it with our producers who were all based in LA at the time. And I remember also thinking initially, like, why are we writing all this down? Like, can't we just like have a conversation about this and we have some bullet points? But there was like, everything was written down and there were no jokes because you can't write down a joke like that, right? So it was just completely streamlined. And the cast itself, the way I learned it at least, was that we have a lot of talk about the game. And then from time to time, there were some like personal jokes or some burns. Like D-Man was always good at finding different things. You could like,
only because D-Man took shots at you, right?
Sure.
Else. And at the time, Reddit thought he hated you.
Yeah, that's true.
They actually thought you two didn't like each other.
That's true. But it was so different. And then it evolved over the years. And now when I've been sitting in on some of the story meetings from the broadcast the last couple of years, if I've been on as a guest or something, it's like, yes, there's still the high level things that people want to hit. And there's like a few bullet points. But you only really script out maybe special segments and maybe the host intro and outro. So like when Shocks tosses to the casters, maybe they put something in there. Everything else is like bullet points. And then you go into rehearsal and you kind of try and go through some things and you see how the flow is. And then you trust that people know what they're doing. And it gives so much room for improv. It gives so much room for these funny moments than it was before. So I really like that change that happened.
Yeah, but it also comes with trust and experience. Sorry to cut you off, but like, very fortunately for many, many years, the core team were the same people, right? And like, like I said, Ifya and I, we've grown to become friends over years, but Ifya has always been an exceptional host, and she's always been very in control of everything that she does. And then when you work with the same team, with the same host, the same producer, a couple of years in a row, you can only have Martin in a call with you so many times before you start to expect which player or team he will lose focus on and try to inject some humor, right? But then that eventually, like, it builds a foundation that you can add onto, and obviously you have to change with the times because this is the internet, and the internet changes so quickly.
I'm gonna get my second beer.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab a beer in a second as well. I did want to
Yeah.
ask, and I'm especially curious about your opinion on this one, Quickshot, because obviously, like all of the skits and stuff, the things we've been doing in the LPL, it's all been within this year basically, and a lot of that is in the wake of LEC kind of setting the tone of, hey, this is a really funny, interesting way to do esports, and like obviously myself and Rob are European anyway, so we've watched a lot of LEC, so we very much appreciate that kind of broadcast, and we've made an active effort to try and incorporate some of that style.
Yeah.
But when you look at classical sports television, that style isn't really a thing. Not within sports television generally, not within the live broadcast. There are some like post shows and things like that do crazy stuff, but actually the real show, like BBC, it is super prim and proper.
Oh yeah, but you
tie
picked
up,
the
like...
most boring
Yeah.
broadcast.
But it's also one of the
Pissel,
most
you can't
viewed
bring
of classical sports
BBC.
broadcasts, right?
Because it's old. It's been there for so freaking long. It's an institution. Now, I agree and I accept the point, right? And I think something that's really important is that our show proper, from the moment Picks and Bans starts, we're deadly fucking serious.
Yeah.
And if you go look at the LEC, we have 3 distinct sections to the show. Our pre-show, ready check, then we have our 5 games, and then we have our post-show, post-game lobby. And they are distinct missions to them, right? Ready check is focused on the talent. It's focused on setting up the day, the fun. It's where the shoutcasters get to express parts of their personality they don't get anywhere else. You then get 5 games of deadly serious coverage. Very, very few times do we go over the top and like something magical, like the Schalke Miracle Run with God Gilius. That's what it takes for us to do like a ridiculous monologue during there. Like a team has to be on the verge of elimination and then have this magical run. But otherwise it is like 95% serious with the jokes here and there. And then finally post-game lobbies focused on the players. The long-winded point I'm trying to get to is that we have understood the DNA of our show, and it is inspired by the people that work on it, both on and off camera. And we have found a rhythm and a tone and a voice that when the EU LCS was rebranded to LEC, we did brand definition workshops. We looked at logos, we looked at inspiration, we talked about what we wanted the soul of the show to be, and then we committed to it. And I think imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I think is how the saying goes.
Yeah.
And if you look at many of our segments, well, they're just pretty much hardcore ripped off of something else that was awesome. Mediocre rap battles of history. Where have we seen that before? LEC update, weekend update. Where have we seen that before? Between 2 Iverns, like,
yeah.
We look at something that works, we put our spin on it, right? But that's also how the internet works. And I will challenge you on one area. Go watch any NBA pregame, any one of them. I don't care. And especially if Shaq is on it, they do even goofier stuff than we do. And do you want to know why I go NBA specifically? It's the most modern, up-to-date, in touch with people that actually work in the internet out of any broadcast. NFL, stuffy and old. Premier League, stuffy and old. Cricket, nobody even knows what the fuck that is. Stuffy and old. Rugby, stuffy and old. The only one that actually is like modern and kind of connected a little bit is NBA. It's the most up to date. And I think every other sport either has to adapt or die, because I don't know about you guys, but when I have kids, they are not going to be watching cricket or rugby. They're going to watch esport. They're going to be involved. They're going to be growing up with this industry. And this is what's going to be their influence, is what's going to define the content that's being made.
Well, they'll definitely watch Six Nations. Other than that, maybe not.
See what I mean? Stuffy and old. Go watch your BBC broadcast. It's boring.
I mean, I don't watch the BBC, right? And there's a reason for that. But like I was just curious on like what the origin of that had been. That's why I was asking the question. So
it comes down to the rebrand, and that's what it is. Like in 2018, I don't know if Martin was actually involved in any of those sessions. Maybe you were.
I think I was, yeah.
But we had like honestly huge, dude. There's about 40 or 50 people that work in the Berlin office, and the company that came in that worked with us, they ran so many freaking sessions with different groups, and they'd run the same session but with different mixtures. They'd have one with a bunch of shoutcasters, then they have one with like one shoutcaster, one league ops, one events team, and see how the answers and conversation differed. And then they came out with this thing. It's like, right, here's your buzzwords. How do you make those buzzwords a reality?
Okay, interesting. So I do want to push the conversation on a little bit now, away from LEC.
How dare you?
I know. It's
Let's talk 2016 from day one till the end.
I wanted to ask more about the difference, and kind of leaning towards you here, Deficio. You mentioned right at the very start of the show, even before the intro, about how your transition went from being a caster to working in a team, and how dramatically different your expectation was to what the reality of that was. And I kind of wanted to open that conversation up a little bit more and dig a little bit more into that, on what were the stark differences between a team environment and the broadcast environment. Because obviously, like, I've spoken to a lot of coaches and players about broadcast, and their expectations of what a broadcast should be versus my expectations of what a broadcast should be are dramatically different, right? And I'd imagine the same could be said about my expectations of what a team could be and the reality. So I was curious if you could kind of shed some light on what that transition was like, and what the significant differences were.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question,
that's a
right?
huge question.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I guess the first one, because we are talking a lot about like casting prep and how do you prepare a show and so on. I mean, the first thing is just how chaotic, how messy the team side can be, because it's still such a young industry on that side, and there's a lot of people involved in a lot of different areas, and we're still at the point where a lot of people come in from different areas, like different sports or business or whatever, who don't have anything to do with esports. They get integrated into like an esports company and have to pick up all the esports part of it, and then integrate their own things from their experience, and then you mix that with people who come purely from esports, and that creates like a lot of different things where you have to spend a lot of time on getting on the same page. I think on just the team side, which is probably the more interesting for people to hear about, it's again like you. So when you come from a broadcast, things are pretty streamlined in a broadcast. Where
He's on the beer.
I can see he's now getting the beer. So on a broadcast, everything is streamlined. You wake up on the first day of the year as a shoutcaster, and if you have signed like either if you have a full-time contract or you have signed like a yearly contract, I assume that's what you guys were on in the LPL. You like committed for the year. You know pretty much how every single day is gonna go for the rest of that year, with the only pending thing maybe being international events.
And COVID.
And yeah, of course, COVID obviously makes it very messy, right? But if we ignore COVID, you know how every day is gonna go. You know, this is the period where I'm gonna prep, and then the broadcast will start here. It will start every day at 2:00, and I will have to show up at 11. We're gonna do a rehearsal. I'm gonna get makeup. I'm gonna jump in my suit. We're gonna go live with the games. I'm gonna send out this tweet about going live. We're gonna do the games. I'm gonna go home, read Reddit, cry, go to bed, wake up, do the same thing the next day. And you just know that this is how everything's gonna go. And there's producers. There's just a plan. If you do it differently, as the only one, you're the one getting criticized, because you are now making it harder for the producers or the graphics people or the other casters or whatever. So your life is literally figured out. That's it. Where on the team side, like every day, there's a chance you wake up and something is just completely different. Like nothing is ever the same. Nothing is ever streamlined. And you get to work with so many different people. And then you add on the fact that it's a competition. Much more than it is. I know as a casters, we like to compete against each other, and we all want to get the world final and be number one, and we want to give each other feedback and improve, just like you would do on a team. But it's just different because you have people playing like their hearts out for their careers, trying to do the best they can to be as good as they can be, and they're playing against other teams who's doing exactly the same. There's constant competition, always pressure. You can have the most amazing week where you've done everything perfect in practice, and then you can go in, and on the day, the one game you play in Europe as a best of one, the one game you play, something goes wrong. the draft, or a player has a bad thing or whatever, and you lose. And now you look back at the entire week and you just hate it. You're like, everything is horrible. How do we lose this game? What's going on? You can win the off season according to the community by signing all the right players, and then something goes wrong along the year and you don't make worlds. Never happened to me, of course. Could happen to someone else. So the unexpectedness and the messiness of the team side has been the biggest difference. And also how no one has figured things out is the other one. I think on a broadcast, you have figured out a lot of things that works. On the team side, the only thing that's been truly figured out is if you sign really, really good players and they end up mixing well together, you're going to be a great team. But you can't even predict that. Maybe they hate each other after 3 weeks. So there's no certainty in this.
Maybe it's a little bit different because you like came from Copenhagen Wolves and you played, and then you went into casting, then into the role that you're in now. But what was the biggest misconception you had as a caster, and then moving to team side, where like you just completely didn't understand that this was actually a thing that teams faced?
I was surprised about how poor practice is for the majority of teams. I thought from my time in 2013, when practice was obviously not the greatest, everything was online and there was no coaches, there was no structure. We went in, we played, we finished the game, we would yell at each other if we lost, and then we'd go into the next game. That's it. I think we spent like 5 minutes between games. That was it. And now there is a structure where you play, you have a review time, and you play again, you have review time, you play again, you have review time. But the amount of times I've seen practice games that lasted 20 minutes, there were 50 kills in those 20 minutes. So not even LPL can keep up with this.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And people would gather after the game, and they would just sit there and be like, "What should we talk about? I don't know. None of what happened in that game will ever happen on stage, other than the first 3-4 minutes." The amount of times that has happened over the last couple of years, it's been one of the things where I really thought as a caster that it evolved way past how it was in 2013. I thought that had definitely changed a lot. But practice is still done pretty much the same way. There's still a big issue with these kind of games where so teams call it limit testing.
Yeah.
Everyone is limit testing in practice. And when you do that, you get 1 million kills, you completely accelerate the game from a goal perspective, from an item perspective, and you end up getting typically either a bad read on certain matchups, certain picks, or you potentially don't get to practice important parts of the game because by the time you get there, there's 50 kills, as I said, and the game is over, right? So I think that was a huge surprise for me, and something I really now want to try and push my team and my staff to try and change this mindset of how you approach practice games.
Yeah, because we've had Peter Dunn, we've had Grabs, and they've all kind of just said the same thing. Like the Mad Lions coach, the G2 coach, that the scrim culture and kind of the practice culture in Europe just needs to be reworked. Are you kind of in the same boat, or what would you like to see change that would bring about the I suppose a better style of play and practice for Europe?
I mean, I agree. I think limit testing a long way can be done in more isolated practice, one-on-one practice, 2v2 practice, depending on the lanes. I think you can have some practice sessions that are just where people can kind of go what I called it is autopiloting. I think if you autopilot in a practice game, there's no pressure. It's very natural. There's an opening. I'm going to go for it. It's fine. I don't need to think that I have to learn anything else but this specific champion or matchup. So it's fine. I can go for some aggressive plays. We see what happens. And it is a way to learn. And I think it is successful for some players. And I think it is successful for some games. But I think what ends up happening is a lot of teams end up maybe spending 2 or 3 days doing this and end up losing a lot of games or lose time in a lot of games where they didn't maybe learn. So I think there needs to be potentially a big change in mindset of what are you trying to achieve in your practice game. I think a problem in League of Legends, and this is also blame towards Riot. So Trevor, fix it. But a problem is that like there is no 5v5 sandbox mode. You couldn't set up a game saying, okay, we only want to, like, so let's say we suck at late game and we play against a team also suck at late game, like Baron setups. Let's just take that as an example. You can't go in and set a practice game at 20 minutes, give everyone X amount of gold to buy whatever items they would roughly have around that time, and say, okay, team 1, you're the one setting up for Baron. Team B, you're trying to defend it and get control and set up your control. Like this is, again, just as an example.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You have to play the full game pretty much every time in the way it is now. And that makes it really, really difficult for coaches to say, okay, I have specific things I want to practice only, because then by the time you get to that thing, something could have gone completely wrong in the game. Enemy jungler has already picked up 3 kills. So he's way stronger now when you're about to practice this 8-minute Herald than he normally would be. And you try and adapt to that. And then it happens the next game as well. And as a coach, maybe you're just like, okay, like, can I just get a normal setup, you know? And these things can be really difficult in the way the game is now because of no proper practice tool. So I think that could be a huge change if that could be invented. But yeah, I think it's a mindset thing.
Does anybody know StarCraft 2? I don't know if anybody in chat knows StarCraft 2, but I think in StarCraft 2 they added a feature where you could load up a replay and you could practice certain fights. Like, you know, if you had a replay before.
Yeah, that could be another thing, right?
Like, I mean, I can't compare to this experience at all, but for some folks who didn't know, but I used to quote unquote compete in Call of Duty 4 Pro Mod. And I got to attend Antwerp Esports Festival in 2010. And I actually had a team from South Africa called Cube. We went over to practice. And we practiced at a place called Outpost on Fire. It's a particularly famous LAN venue in Antwerp. And I got to play against Dignitas' Call of Duty team. So we went in there. And at the time, the SMG guy who I ended up befriending and still talk to this day, his nickname's Fantasy.
I was about to ask if that was the team with Fantasy on.
It was.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine.
Yes. Exactly, right. And
it's not a friend of mine.
The very first map we played,
I'm sure he would.
They expected just to roll these South African guys, and like my mates and I, we had pretty good aim. We ended up winning the first half 7-5, and the first to 13 is the winner. After winning 7-5, we then only won 2 rounds on the next half, and they beat us 13-9. Pretty close. We're like, fuck yeah, we were pretty competitive with Dignitas. But then they went, oh no, okay, these guys actually think they're good. So then we played them on a map called Crossfire, and they beat us 13-1. They kicked the living shit out of us. And it just goes back to kind of the point that Martin just said, like about mentality. They didn't treat us with respect or give us the proper focus because they thought they were just like significant. They still beat us without even really trying, okay? But then when they actually tried, they were so much better in every single way. And that's such limited experience, but like I think there's so many different ways to tackle this particular situation, and tools, mentality, mutual agreement, like focus, professionalism. Like there's so many angles to it that can make it better.
It's also hard though, for players because the game changes so often, and it's like when you start, most teams will practice Monday through Thursday in Europe, and then they play Friday, Saturday, and they don't have Sunday off. So they have one day off, and that's it. And then you're back to practicing again starting Monday. And it is expected that when you show up for practice on a Monday, that if there are certain champions you maybe don't currently have in your pool, that you've been spending time, practicing these champions, preparing them, especially if that's something that's been decided as a team that we want to include like these kind of picks. When there's a new patch, this goes for pretty much everyone if it is a patch with significant changes. So I think players end up spending pretty much too much time just on the game. And it's the same game you play in solo queues, you play in scrims. So obviously slightly different what happens in the game, but it's still the same game. So I think it can be really, really hard if you already play, let's say 10 hours each day, to then go into a practice game and then instantly be able to have this mentality shift of, okay, wait, now it's practice, it's different, I have to do this instead. I think it can be done, but I also understand why it's really hard to do. because you are just in this grind during the season, and you have to, because the game again keeps changing. You think you have the meta figured out, turns out someone is doing something different. Now you have to pick that up and do that. It's so different in like Counter-Strike, where I had the pleasure of obviously like following Astralis and their players, their coach quite a lot, where the game is so often the same, where you're just more practicing different strategies, different tactics, less than you necessarily have to learn like a new weapon every 2 weeks. And how does that change the weapon meta and what happens there? It allows you to have a lot more time where you're maybe not 100% focused on the game. So when you go into practice, you can tailor it a lot more, and you can probably expect way more focus and that mentality shift a lot easier than in League of Legends, which is just this constant grind. And I honestly feel bad for players in the middle of a season when it's like, oh, new patch is coming, great, more changes, and you're just watching these people like having to try and put in enough hours into their solo queue while also expected to show up for practice and perform, at a top level in practice to gain something from it, to then go on stage and play. But obviously, again, this is part of the job, and this is why they get paid the money they get paid. But I understand why it's not easy to just shift it.
That was one of the things we heard from LPL players a lot, was like, because it's 7 days a week and you're playing potentially 3 best of 3s that week, like the ability to actually go into practice, and even if you wanted to try something new, like say there was some fringe pick in the meta that you thought maybe this could be good, you just couldn't dedicate the hours to it because, well, you've just played, potentially 9 hours of League of Legends on stage, plus your scrim and prep and everything for those best of 3s, and then you're going to go and play solo queue to try this thing out. Like, it just meant there was just no time to try out anything other than what you planned basically for the next 3 weeks. This is your champion pool.
Yeah, pretty much. And including new champs into your pool, if you're already a bit behind, can be super hard. Some players need a lot of practice on specific picks in order to pick them up. So now you're trying to do that, and then something changes in the game again, and you have to pick up more champions while still need to learn this champion. I know this was a case when like Kaiser brought up like Wukong support in Europe, and there's a lot of European supports who were like, wait, what? We have to play that now? Okay. And then they had to like shift over to playing the carry, where the AD carry was playing the support, and so on. And that was really hard to do in the middle of the split. So some players can do it, or some players just find something that works, and that's a huge benefit. And especially in the best of one circuit, like regular season, you can literally get into playoffs just by having 2 to 3 like really good reads on how to play the game. That just nets you a couple of key wins in the middle of the split, and that can be enough, right, to get you in. It's not enough to win your playoffs. We've seen that. That's why G2 keep winning playoffs, right? You need to have more than that, but it's enough to get you in. And I think actually there was, we were joking about Origin and failing and so on at the start of the show. Like, I think, funny enough, both summer splits, a huge issue for the teams I had, despite having really, really good players who obviously were good enough to make playoffs, both splits. Like, we were really good both spring splits. We actually failed both times to figure out like our own identity and what the best way to play the game was during the summer splits. When things got really hectic, a lot of things were happening. And that made it really hard for the team. And they were always like on the back foot because of that. And while, yes, it was close to get into playoffs every time, you lost like 1 or 2 games because of this. And that's enough to put you out of playoffs. And then everything is a failure, right? So I think that's a really difficult thing. And I always feel bad for players and coaches when I watch them and they have to try and figure this out. And they have like, there's a deadline every time. Next Friday.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out. You have to be ready. And you don't know what the other team is preparing. So it's always tricky. But it's also part of what I love about the sport, right?
And then you're just there like, I'm so glad I took a back seat on this stuff. I get to I'm just
Well,
going to
then
go
I'm
do some
there,
emails, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wait, let me just call up someone else.
Yeah.
We actually joked a little bit on broadcast. We were like, okay, at what point does Martin get involved? And then at what point is Martin told to get the fuck out the kitchen? And when does he step back into the kitchen? Like, there was in spring.
It
We
happened.
never attributed the success to Martin of
No, you
Origin
shouldn't.
Spring in 2019, but all of the problems of summer 2019 we attributed to Martin because it was a sexy story to sell, and the
I'm happy with that.
it's one
I
of those times.
always want to take the blame. I'll tell every fan already, flame me instead of my players. Every time. I'm perfectly fine with that. I went through all of this as a caster anyway. It's all good. You guys can just go ham. I have no problem with it. But I think like it's always interesting, right? Like who failed in a team game? Was it one person's fault that this didn't work? Was it all the players, all the coaches, the entire organization? You
Dude,
never know.
you've watched enough NFL to be able to look and go, the head coach is gone if something goes
Oh
right.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are some people who want the answer to what went wrong, and there are some people who want to see a head roll to the question
Yes.
of what went wrong.
That is
And
true.
there is so little knowledge. Like I've never been team side, right? And the closest I've ever been to team side is both my husband and wife in esports work for teams, right?
The same
And
team, in fact.
Same team, yeah.
they do now, right? They do now, but they used to be competing. So I've only ever learned stuff very secondhand and very much on a need to know basis, right? Because obviously with Beck and I being in the same house together, I have to keep Riot stuff away from her, and she has to keep Misfit stuff away from me. But I don't see it, and I'm close. I'm married to somebody in a team, and I don't have a full understanding of what goes right and what goes wrong and whatnot. So how the hell are fans and people watching able to figure stuff out, right? Like what Martin was talking about a little bit earlier. There's no standard practice in esports teams. What might work for most European teams may not fly in NA, may not fly in South Korea, may not fly in China. And unlike traditional sports, there is still a lot of development and growing
Yep.
and progress to be made, both on my side, like predominantly broadcast, and our side rather, except for Martin now, and then on the team side as well. Like there's still a lot of change coming.
But just to add to that as well, like I think in every sport, you can, as we talked about earlier, you can do drills, right? Like, oh, we have a problem as an, I don't know, NBA team shooting threes. So we can literally go in and just practice shooting threes for the next like week if we want to.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Again, we can't do that properly
Yeah.
in league. So figure as a coaching staff, if you're able to figure out how to properly like create concepts, be able to break these concepts down with your players to something that people can easily understand, even like both outside the game and when they're in the game itself, which is obviously a completely different world when you're playing in the game and when you're just sitting and watching a VOD. And especially reminders, right? I think reminders is like a key thing of, okay, right, 8 minutes, so we're reaching 7 minutes. So I know, because you talked about lane swaps for Herald, like the first Herald at 8 minutes. This was a big one for us, where it was like, okay, at 7 minutes, a rule was made that our jungler at 7 minutes had to ask every time Herald is spawning, what are we doing? Are we swapping for it? Are we contesting it if they started? What's the state of the game right now? And it was just to prompt the conversation, which would then put everyone's mind towards that 8-minute Herald. And it fixed that problem for us. That wasn't the reason we ended up losing games, because it forced people to go, oh, right, actually we have push on bottom side, or like we have a stronger 2v2 bot. So jungler, if you can go towards mid, so we can get prio mid into securing fake roam towards bot side. Now our bot lane can actually shove out. They can get early recalls. So we have tempo, and they can go to Herald at 8 minutes, right? Like let's say that's the scenario. That's something you can like create and practice and so on. But it's once you go further into the game, there's more and more things that can be really, really difficult. So yeah, the drilling is a big problem, and that's hard. But I find it really fascinating, because you asked me also what was one of the things that surprised me, and what surprised me is how many disagreements there are about the game itself.
Yeah.
Within a team. Like if you
Yeah.
think it's crazy on Twitter with like Twitter analysts and casters and fans on Reddit who obviously are nothing as part of the sport sit and argue the game with each other. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Everyone's diamond on Reddit, of course.
Yeah,
Don't
I love it.
forget.
It's part of the sport, man. It's what makes it fun. But even within a team,
Yeah.
I've had draft meetings that lasted hours, and we would walk out of that draft meeting, and I was just a fly on the wall, and nobody had actually figured out a clear idea for what we're supposed to do because they just kept disagreeing on so many things.
Yeah.
And the game is so hard that there is so rarely a right and wrong
I think
in this game.
That's the key thing, right? Is that so much about the game, especially when it comes to draft, is subjective because it depends on the players that you have. It depends on the players that they have. It depends on the style of game you want to play. It also just depends on opinions of like what is good, what is strong, what counters what. Because like
what happened in practice.
Like there's. I was talking to Nico DePico at an event ages and ages ago, and one of the things that he said to me that really stuck with me was when he was working with Caps on Fnatic. One of the frustrating things for them was that Caps was too good in scrims, so you never got a good idea of what a mid lane matchup looked like because Caps would win both sides of the matchup. So then your entire perspective of the meta is totally warped because your mid always wins. How the fuck do you practice being behind in 15 minutes when your mid lane always has 3 kills in scrims? It's not possible, right? So, and you can't tell your guy, hey, stop winning so hard. Like that doesn't work.
It's true. But the good thing when you have that kind of player is when you prepare the draft for the official game, no matter what he says he wants to play, you're
like
super confident.
Yeah.
You're like, great, nice, take that. And then you have the feeling that you just won draft because he got one of the 150 champions. So you're like, nice. And that's going to work until you face like one of the best mid laners in the world, which in the early stages of Cap's career was a problem because then when he faced the very, very, very best, he did actually sometimes get stomped because he maybe didn't have the perfect knowledge, but I think he's gotten a lot better there. But that's the thing.
One of my favorite memories, and I don't know if you casted this event with me, Deficio, but I think that you did. It was one of the early IM Katowices, and Froggen was on the analyst desk. I was hosting the AD. And at the time, Karthus mid and LeBlanc was a huge talking point. And at the time, everyone was just like, look, LeBlanc like shits on Karthus, LeBlanc is better. Froggen came out, or Faker came out. I can't remember who said it first, but one of them said, look, Karthus wins that matchup. And I think it was
Froggen, and then Faker corroborated.
And then Faker.
There we go. Right. So Froggen said it, right? The internet lost its fucking mind. And then Faker came out and said, Froggen is right, Karthus wins.
Yep.
So I specifically, very fortunately, was quite close to Froggen at the time. And I said to him, look, would you be comfortable if I brought this up? I'm like, it's everywhere on Twitter. Every Twitter analyst in the world is talking about how you're wrong. And they're too afraid to say Faker's wrong, but they definitely know you're wrong. And Reddit. And basically the whole point I want to get to is that once he actually spoke about it, he broke down in detail how if you play Karthus and if you use your entire mana pool, level 1, hit every single Q, you push them out of the lane, you get to control the lane, you get an early back, you get an early level advantage, and therefore you're in the lead. And my follow-up question, I thought I was so proud of. I said, yeah, but you know, what happens if you miss a Q? And he goes, I don't. And I went, no. But what if you do? And he goes, you don't. You hit every Q. This is how Karthus wins. And that forever, for my entire career, will be imprinted into my brain because there are very, 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 very few players that will look you dead in the eye, live on broadcast to hundreds of thousands of people and go, what if you miss a skill shot? And he goes, I don't. And like at that time, Froggen was also one of the guys that when he said that, the internet went, okay, I'll let you slide, but no one the fuck else, right? No one else can say that. Froggen in Europe in 2013-14, fine, you get a pass. And then again, it just warps your entire perspective of everything because you got this one person that can do something nobody else can.
It's a beautiful thing about the game, but it's also why the game is mainly built around a core audience who actually play the game and watch a lot of the game. Otherwise, you're going to get really confused when the analyst desk has that conversation about Karthus versus LeBlanc. Like, why is this such a big deal? And if you don't actually understand the champions super well, I don't think you can even join the conversation or even as a spectator enjoy it because you're like, wait, what does Karthus do again? Who is he exactly? Like, you need to be super into the game to
Yeah.
follow these kind of conversations. And yeah, it's interesting. But definitely on the team side, it's been one of the most frustrating things is watching people debate the game for hours. I thought it was
Without
going
a
to be funny.
conclusion.
Yeah, but just how hard it can be to find a conclusion that everyone agrees with. And at some point, the coach just steps in and says, all right, this is our conclusion to this. No more talking. This is what we're doing. And that's how it is. And then you go in and play the game, and then you lose. And then the guy who thought he was right, he's like, I just want to bring this up again. I just want to say we shouldn't be doing this. And then like, oh my God, here we go again. But it's part of it. You know, you need to have these conversations. I think every coach will join in on that and say, man, it's been hours, days we've been debating this.
Yeah, I think the hilarious thing is like you're talking about that as one of the things that was like a surprise to you, moving from broadcast to a team side. Honestly, in my experience in broadcast, the same things happen. Like colorcasters arguing about the way that the game is meant to be played and which team is better. Like play-by-plays and colors arguing about narratives and who the better team is and who the better player is.
There is one key difference. One very key difference, Mr. Feeney, is that our jobs are not on the line if you get the wrong read, right?
True.
And I agree with you. And I also
Very
think when we argue off air, and I have argued with Martin, and I've argued with my entire caster team and everybody I've worked with, you end up finding a middle ground because your end goal is not what will win, what is the best. Your end goal is it entertaining? Oh, is our argument fun? Should we try and capture that and do it again? Or, oh, I've just learned something, right? Like, I think the pressure is slightly different. Then if anybody else is on the sideline and like you see a hugely animated, I've had producers that have stopped debates and gone, I don't care, it's going in the show. Don't talk about it. You are forbidden from discussing this topic amongst yourselves. I will speak to you privately, and I will speak to you privately, and I'll get your graphics requests, and I want this argument on air.
Yeah. And I think sorry.
No, you're good. No, I'm very excited.
I know it's a fun conversation. I think there's two parts to add to that as well. On the broadcast, as a caster, this is my number one caster tip to any color caster out there. You don't have to know everything. You can literally sometimes just say, wow, they just locked in Vayne. I'm just excited to see what it can do. And that's actually acceptable. That's casting. You have just built a storyline you can follow in the game. What I see from a lot of casters, and I don't know why this is a thing, is they feel they have to explain everything. Oh, Vayne has been locked in. I actually have no opinion of this pick. I have no knowledge of if it's good or not. I haven't followed this pick for half a year.
I will commit and say this is an awful idea.
Yes, I'm just gonna tell people this fucking sucks, man. Why did they pick this? This is so garbage. Why would they pick it into this champion and this champion and this champion? And then the moment the game is over, Vayne has just won. The player tweets, man, Vayne is so good into this champion and this champion and this champion for these reasons. And then the entire thread is just, this caster is so stupid. Oh my God, how can he do this? And I was like, you don't have to. You can literally just leave it and just make it exciting. And ooh, let's see what's going on. And that's it. You can't do that on the team side. You can't go into the draft saying, guys, let's pick it and see what happens. Ooh, it's going to be awesome. You know, like that doesn't work. So you don't have that. But I also think on the caster side, we always have a step up. If we have an argument, if you and I had an argument about a pick, is Kassadin mid good? We can always go to a pro player or a coach and say, hey, what's your opinion? Is Kassadin good? We can go to one guy if we trust that guy, or we can go to multiple people, doesn't matter. We can go out and gather information, and then we can use that ourselves in how we want to present this argument. Again, you can't do that as a team. You're not calling the other team saying, by the way, do you think Kassadin is good? Just want to know, we're definitely not going to pick it. Like, that doesn't work. So as a team, you're isolated. You have to find the answer yourself, and you have a deadline because you're about to play a game and you need to get it right. As a caster, you can literally just call 7 million people if you want to. Or you can just go on air and be super adamant about it on your own. That's obviously fine too.
It does depend on the brand that you're building as well, because certainly there are some brands that have thrived within that environment of being the center of all knowledge, right? That's a pretty common...
That's the most exciting thing, is you get to pick, like I'm deep down at my soul and my core, I'm quite a pessimistic individual, and I don't really like too many people, and I like being alone, and
I'm sure your wife is
I
happy to
keep
hear
to
that.
myself, right? But on broadcast, the person that is the character that is Quickshot is always enthusiastic, always love, and I genuinely love, competitive video games, and I've played and I've watched for such a long time. I've watched so many esports. I honestly think the three of you could add up the number of years you've watched esports together, and I still think I will beat you. Like I watched cell phone racing games in the early 2000s. Has anybody even heard of Asphalt racing? I watched the
I've
World
actually cast
Championship.
Asphalt.
There
Can
we
we
go.
not?
Casted everything,
My
dude.
man. Okay.
You know everyone. You've casted everything. Like
Now the point that I want to bring it back to is that when you are on broadcast and when you are presenting a brand or a personality, you get to pick and choose how you perceive or how you present, right? And like Martin just said, Martin was always very, very good at being deliberate with information, and he did it to ensure that what he was saying would be correct at all times. And if he wasn't 100% certain or could validate it, would be very intelligent with how he would maneuver those other positions. I've always had a flair for the dramatic. And what I would do is I would take the pick, is Cassidy mid good? I would find a player that everybody knows but doesn't trust. And I'm like, well, listen, I don't know. I will dominate, says this is the best mid lane pick ever. And everyone's like, seriously? Why are you trusting Dom? And Martin, many times, would look at me and be like, what are you doing now? Like, he would roll his eyes and be like, why do I have to save your ass again? Because he's presenting his brand and his perception in one way, and I'm doing mine for different purposes or different goals. And then you kind of meet in the middle and you make something that's fun and exciting, So you've got a much safer playground than what you do team side.
See,
who's the person on the LPL broadcast who is so different on camera versus real life? Because as Trevor just said,
An
he just
asshole. Munchables is a fucking asshole.
that's it. Okay, so he's fair enough.
No. I mean, I literally nothing is. It's all completely real. Yeah,
Right, but you always know the person who changes everything about him the moment the broadcast goes live, right? Like the way he talks, his energy. As Trevor just said, I remember multiple times that I hated him for it. I always hated it. Like 5 seconds before he gets tossed to the caster desk, Trevor's like with the producer or something. Like he's like, no, we don't want that. And then you hear the sharks tossing over to the caster. He's like, yeah, but and then the moment, hello everyone. Yes, we're so excited. Everything is fantastic here. And I'm just like, Jesus, man. Like 5 seconds ago, you were so grumpy. You were so annoyed about everything. And then he like makes that change. So there must be someone on the LPL broadcast who's doing the same. Where it's just like different voice, different tone, something.
I actually like, for the most part, like people are fairly close to what they are. Like Lyric is a pessimistic bastard.
I was going to say,
so
I don't want to call it. I feel like me and Lyric are probably the closest to that, because I've had a lot of days where I like when I have bad moods, I get really grumpy. But obviously, I'm never going to be grumpy on show. But Rob will tell you, I pace around the living room. I'll pace around the studio, like circling behind him and stuff. And then it's like, 30 seconds till live, sit down, get ready.
Sit down.
We go.
It's funny. I thought Lyric was the opposite of me, because especially on the World Championship, we'd have conversations like on Discord or in rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be super jolly, super happy, and like really nice. Then we get to show, and then it's just deadly serious. And welcome to the LPL breakdown. And this is why they're going to win. And I was like, whoa, he's like opposite Trevor. super bubbly and kind of happy to be integrating off air, and then on air just like super serious.
Well, he's definitely with Lyric. One of the things that I struggled with when we first started casting together was obviously he was a coach that became a caster and had never cast before, and my sense of humor is dramatically different to his sense of humor. So one of the big struggles for me was kind of like you guys were talking about earlier with Deficio, you and D-Man, how Reddit basically thought you guys didn't like each other. There was a Reddit comment about, I think Munchables hates Lyric because, like,
do you?
I don't hate Lyric. I don't. Just to quickly clarify, I don't hate Lyric.
I heard the pause.
I'm even acting right now. This isn't the real me. This is a
Deficio, I'll message separately. Hang on, give me one second.
But like, the trying to get that humor right and trying to figure out how to get him out of his shell, out of just pure, because the guy's a brain box of the game, right? He will just spew analytics at you if unprompted. But I feel like when I'm casting with Lyric, part of the job is to try and move away from just analytics. And Lyric's in chat, actually, I've just seen it. But like one of the fun things about casting with Lyric is when we do get off the beaten path, we go down some crazy rabbit holes. But you just got to get him off of that track and onto just, hey, let's have some fun with this. Especially when it's like Rogue Warriors playing, because he loves that team, but they're terrible.
Can I tell you the biggest secret that I wish more shoutcasters would do, and not enough people listen to me? Just tell the viewers what you're gonna do. Like, I'm not being funny, right? But our viewers are smart, and our viewers know that the type of games they're watching, the type of shows they're watching. If you're casting a load of shit, now don't use those exact words, right? Don't use those exact words, but like you can find a real subtle way to be like, hey guys, we're in for a ride today. So let's get the clown hats on and the party poppers and see where this takes us, right? Like, if you signpost what you're going to do and you warn people, hey, guys, this is going to get a little weird because we're 75 minutes into a game that 15 inhibitors have gone down. Bear with me, right? And people give you that safety. But you also need to have some credibility that like when things get serious and intense that you can then like nail it. But I just wish more people would like tell the viewers what they're going to expect and then allow them to decide, did I like it or not? Well, they told me they were going to do it. I can forget about it and I won't flame the fuck out of them on socials.
We have done that a couple of times on LPL. I don't remember what the series was specifically, but we referred to it regularly as the circus fiasco. It's in like Clown Fiesta, right? And it was I forget what the matchup was, but it basically didn't matter in the standings. They were both already out of playoffs. Like, we knew the players didn't care. We knew that they were two pretty terrible teams anyway. Like, there was no way this was going to be a high quality best of 3. But you knew it was going to go to 3 games because it always does in those kind of matchups. So you know you've got like 2 hours of this. So it's like, just buckle in, boys and girls. We're here for the ride. Like, let's just see where this one
Isn't
goes.
that just because I feel like a lot of esports fans, they're watching the game with you? Like, they don't need you to present the game specifically. Sometimes they're just watching it with you. And they just want you to say the things that they're thinking already.
Yeah.
You know?
They want you to confirm their beliefs,
Yeah, they just want to hear that, you know?
I mean, like, there are some games where, you know, especially Martin and I think Martin, myself, Ifia, in the developmental years of Berlin EU LCS, like, we were really trying to define our style, and especially when Crapper was there with us as well, and we were very gameplay focused for a while, and then we kind of had to learn that our viewers did not really love that direction. Like, we had to look internally to figure out how we want to pivot and change it. So we start to figure out, well, what is the content we want to produce? What is the stuff that we want to do? And how do we do it for the viewers? And you end up making, like, let's say 85% of all your content is predominantly about the teams and the fans. Then about 10% of the content is a little bit selfish. It's me or Martin or Bevvies or whoever else. And then 5% is the crazy, dumb, ridiculous things that you shouldn't do. You probably shouldn't be doing, but you know it'll work. And like when we had the 0-13 Rocket Origin game, Martin and I fought for it, right? Like, we went into a story meeting that weekend and said, listen, this is going to happen. We're going to do this. And we're going to tell everyone it's ridiculous. And we prepared graphics with party hats. The graphics we had for party hats is still being used to this day as a celebration graphic because of how successful it was and how stupid it was. We've added confetti to graphics now. But we went in with a game plan. We told everyone it was going to be silly. And then we got literally a 70+ minute ridiculous game that will go down in history as one of the best, worst games that has ever happened.
We had first blood at like 45 minutes.
Oh God!
In the game, you must remember. So okay, so I'm sure you remember the game. So Origin's mid laner was Nehun.
Yes.
Who ended up playing in the LCK actually, like later, and actually did fine. But so he was the mid laner, and he hadn't won a game yet. from when he joined Origin. I think Expect was 80 carry, right?
Correct.
Expect must have been 80 carry at this
I
point.
remember this.
And so Rocket was, what I remember mostly was they had Memento as the jungler, and he picked Lee Sin. And I remember in draft being like, okay, if you're playing in this meta, you have to be active in the early game. Like stuff has to happen for this pick to work out. And he was the one who got first blood at 45 minutes, if I remember 100% correctly. And the whole game was just such a goddamn.
I'm not being funny on this one, right? But not only did that happen, then both teams fucked up every single Baron. I think there was 4 or 5 Barons. The game ran until 73 or 75 minutes, and I believe there was 16 or 17 inhibitors killed. Right? Hand on my heart, both teams were killing it. It also got to the point that ZZ Rot portals were being used to defend the base because there was no Nexus turrets left. And I think at one point there was like 2 or 3 ZZ Rots. It's ridiculous. Like chat is currently saying it was 6 Barons and 78 minutes, right?
6 Barons. and then Rocket won, right? I think Rocket won the first game. So Nehun didn't even win his first game.
Correct.
Oh no.
But then he won the next one.
He did. And we had party hats, we had confetti. That confetti stayed on set for like over a month and a half.
Yeah.
People just didn't clear it. It was just like, this confetti needs to stay here.
But it was so before the show. We went to Kaufland, which is close to the studio out in Atlas.
It's like Poundland. Think Poundland.
Oh, okay,
right.
okay. Like
I thought he said Cowland, and I was like, "Are we playing Diablo? What's going on here?"
No. So it's called Kaufland. And we were just walking around trying to look for props, and there wasn't a full clown setup, but we found the noses, and then we bought a party set with the confetti. I don't even know if Trevor knew about the confetti before he was like popped up.
I didn't know about the confetti. I didn't know about the confetti. You surprised me with the confetti because I also think producers said no because it would be a mess that nobody would clean up. So naturally,
when did we ever listen?
Yeah, no, we never did.
Ask for forgiveness, not for permission, right?
There we go.
Have you learned that from Trevor, by the way?
No, I learned that from my boss, weirdly. One of my old bosses. But
Martin learned it from his boss, too.
Yes. Who, by the way, at the time was not my boss. Just want to put that in there. It happened when I left. So, not my boss.
It would have left sooner, you know.
Maybe that was the reason. Yeah, that was part of the transfer. Couldn't deal with the power dynamic. Oh man, well, I do just want to quickly say, Lyric corroborated my story earlier in chat as well, so shout outs to Lyric.
Nice.
Oh man, yeah, it's kind of crazy the some of the differences that one of the things that stood out to me in this conversation that I want to just quickly go back to was the idea of like viewer expectations versus reality, essentially, especially when it comes to players. Because we were talking, I realize it's kind of a tangent at this point. It was relevant a while ago, but I don't
even know what this show is about, dude.
There is not really that much. We're kind of just having a good time.
Doesn't watch the LPL, doesn't watch Bevvies with the boys. I mean, come on.
But there was a part where we were talking about the concept of like winning the off season, right? And like what the viewers have this crazy expectation of this is what teams should be doing, even when, like, as you're saying, Quickshot, you don't have an expectation of what these teams should be doing while you're living with someone from the team, like how it's crazy. And I wanted to bring up the topic of like confirmation bias, both within the audience and within broadcast, and how much you guys think that's how much of a big deal it is, whether you think it's negative or positive. Because I definitely think within viewers, there's like a huge amount of confirmation bias of like, the first game I saw of this guy, he sucked. Therefore, this guy sucks. And every play you see was his teammates carrying him or whatever. Like, you find a reason for that story to stay as it is in your head, right? It's a very real thing. Like, how much do you guys think that is a thing within the way audiences see it? And how much do you think it is a thing within the way that we as casters see some of the players? Because I know I've done that.
It is variable. You cannot ask a question like that and expect a clean answer. Like, you have just opened a Pandora's box, especially what you. What you don't know is the gentleman sitting on my head right now has actively explored this exact topic with us. Now, when we were on
Really?
broadcasts, Martin was one of the people that would challenge these notions a lot, right? And I'm somebody who uses confirmation bias as a means to an end. It's an entertainment tool. But in my role and also in my brand, when I say something and confirm something or use weird logic to get to an answer, there's not people that take it as seriously, so to speak. Martin, on the other hand, has to wield his confirmation bias and his analysis, information with a lot more care and respect, not only because it impacts him, but also the relationship he has with everybody else, right? It plays a huge part in every single thing that we do. And there is a responsibility for every shoutcast and every broadcast to be informed and aware, and also to understand that sometimes you will inadvertently create a topic, right? Accidentally create a scenario, and that you then have to spend a lot of concerted effort and time to try to rectify it and try to balance it out. But the big thing is, sometimes that information doesn't become aware to you unless people tell you. And the reason that I started this whole rant by talking about Martin in particular is Martin's one of the few, very, very few people that truly, truly, truly understands and appreciates the nuance and the power that words actually have. And he will very regularly have conversations. Hey, this player or this part of the game or the way that the broadcast presents this piece of information could be perceived this way. Is that a good thing? And he'll never say it's bad, I don't like it. He'll just like, let me lead you to water, my son. Let me see if you can figure it out. But I truly appreciate it because I know I'm very quick to jump to just like an end state, and I don't often stop to think about the way that you present information or the facts that I choose to share influence people's opinion.
Do you have an example of a thought or what or something that was said that you guys can think of specifically that was like maybe this shouldn't be the way that this is construed? I know
Just give him the origin example, Trevor. You want to do
it. The thing is, I'm trying to not go with more recent. I'm trying to be a little bit more I want to be a little bit more like personal on this one, and I think this is a story that anybody who's watched long enough will know. I've never really bought into the hype of Nuke Duck, even when he was really good.
All right, I'm out.
I never
I'll see you
believed-
guys next time.
And the reason I I want to dive into that one is like, I think if you go a couple of years back, Martin has always been like very, very close to players and to pro teams, and always been aware of like how good Nuke Duck could be. But Martin, you have to give me that he did not deliver on the hype most of the time. And I think this is a contentious player who the confirmation bias, whether you're on the fucking Nuke Duck hype train or not, every single person that's watched our show will know, understand, believe, or hate Year of the Duck. But either way, I think it's one of the most like quintessential examples of this story, because leading up to Year of the Duck, where he actually was good, and I had to agree with it at that time, he had not performed at that level. Everyone else branded them in, but I felt like I was in a fucking loony bin because on stage he was not doing what people were saying he was doing. But I was the weird one. But every pro and every color cast, like, he's great, he's great, he's great. So I'm like, where? I don't see it. Like, you're full of shit. You've got confirmation bias from off camera. I've got it from on camera. And I don't know, it's just it's the best example, I think, that will not get us into trouble in terms of recency bias.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's only fair. Deficio, do you have a rebuttal on how great Nuke Duck has been this entire time and why he is God's gift to the mid lane? And on specifically?
I think there's a couple of players like Nuke Duck who are great examples of people who've been around the scene for a while, and they've had, a lot of ups and downs in terms of results, right? And
that's a very political sentence.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Look how deliberate he is.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think let me break it down in some different ways. So there's a couple of things that Nuke Duck brings that's exceptionally good, which is what a lot of pro players and professional teams, of course, get drawn towards. So one is his impact in a team when it comes to like reviews and when it comes to talking about the game. He is exceptionally smart. And another thing is just his individual skill, like just in a vacuum, just as a player, is good. Now he does have some problems, obviously, which is why he's not been able to consistently, let's say, carry a team with worse teammates as other mid laners have been able to do, or why he hasn't been consistent with his results. I don't want to share them because I do think some of them are. It's a little bit unfair to sit and share that for other teams to use, but I will accept that was a great name to bring up on Trevor's side because it is one that has so much controversy. It's a very controversial name.
Yeah,
yes, let's change it to that. Because of his mixed results, he's been in the scene for so many years. But I will never back down from the fact that Nukeduck is a good mid laner. But he does have things, of course, that he can get better at, which would make him even better as a player. But yes, good example, Trevor. I thought you were going to bring up the one about the broadcast in spring this year. There's a lot of talk about Borigen, like the boring Origin games. And I remember coming into playoffs when we changed our style, also towards the end of spring, and there was a lot more action happening and it was a lot more aggressive. The narrative, at least it felt like from our side, didn't change. It remained the same. Oh my God. Oh, Origin, wake me up in 30 minutes. And we were like, what? We're like going toe to toe with G2 in this best of 5, as by the way, the only team in that playoffs. And I remember calling up Trevor and having a long conversation about
but
this.
It was a healthy conversation.
It was a great conversation.
This is the important thing.
I got the broadcast point of view. I got to say my point of view. And in the end, it was more of a like, hey, maybe sometimes we should rethink the narrative in case.
Also, maybe we should talk sooner, and like,
yeah, sure,
because it is one of those things where it's just like, the original point of the question was just like how that confirmation bias and how,
and it was there from regular season, which was boring. Like, I mean, there was like literally, so I can say that, like, we came into spring split, and as a team we sat down and we said, okay, these are the players we have. This is the meta. What's the most effective way to win best of ones? It's literally to play this one style. So we played that one style every game, which was we would have strong laning bot that could always just do well on its own, and then our jungler would look towards our solo laners, of course Alfari and Nukeduck in this case, and they would ideally be on champions, especially Alfari, that would win 1v1 later in the game. So that way, because Alfari was the best top laner in regular season, as long as he never fell behind, which he couldn't because he had his jungler right there, plus he's an exceptional laner, he would outscale 1v1. We would just play 1-3-1 for literally the entire game at the moment laning phase was over, and the enemy team was just pressured in pretty much every lane, and we knew at some point they would try and make a play, or they would make a mistake in how they were setting up on the map, and we would get some sort of advantage. And it was low kills, low action. It was literally just playing on waves, not very exciting. So I think the narrative was 100% fair in every way. But then when that changed, then sometimes it can be hard then to change your mindset. So, but I think also that's like, sometimes I read Reddit and I think to myself, why am I reading this? Like, this annoys me so much to read. But then 5 minutes after, I'm like, no, actually, I don't mind, because this is the kind of conversation that's healthy for the sport. If we don't have conversations about the teams, the players, the casters, the whatever, I think people will lose interest. And I think the fact we have such a huge community, so many opinionated people, both on Reddit, Twitter, whatever it is, keeps creating this interest in what we're doing. When people praise something, people want to go watch that because, oh my God, this is getting praised. I want to watch this player. I want to watch this caster. I want to watch this broadcast, whatever it is. When people are getting flamed, people also want to watch that because they're like, wait, I want to see why is he getting flamed? What's going on here? So the fact that people are so opinionated about things can be really, really annoying at times, but it's ultimately for the better of our entire industry because it just keeps people interested.
Also, there's a time limit on it. Like I feel so sorry for Dad Munch because Martin and I have talked so fucking much the last 2 hours.
Are we live?
Oh,
I
good.
thought like the
But
we
warm-up.
edit our
This
opinions in
is
later.
pre-drinks, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bit of a time limit on it, right? I think as everything continues to grow and everything begins to change a little bit, I think eventually some of the rawness of this will go away. I can't imagine any other sport in the world where a fucking NBA team will play badly during the regular season, change for the playoffs, and the GM will call the head of broadcast and be like, "Yo, bro, did you see how we play around those threes? We've been drilling that shit for weeks, and you didn't even say it, right?" Like, I think
That's
just
true.
like every industry, there's also a time limit on how long Reddit and Twitter will be able to directly talk to the 4 of us in this call and every other pro and player. If everything keeps growing, at some point there will be social media managers that look after all of our accounts and the pro players' accounts. And then there'll be agents that hire social media managers to then look after all the social platforms, right? Like, you go look at any industry that grows and grows and grows. And I do think there is a very, very real possibility that this level of intimacy and this level of roller coaster will eventually peter out a little bit for the most part, right? And then
Having
the roller
beers and
coaster
just chatting shit on camera.
you see what I mean, right? And like it's one of those things where I don't know, maybe I'm just the old man in the groom and maybe I want to live in that future already, and that's kind of what I'm heading towards. But I definitely I want to savor it, and I definitely want to enjoy the craziness
Yeah.
to be able to drink, chat shit, and spank someone's ass and be celebrated for it, because that would have got us cancelled if we'd done that last year instead of 5 years ago or 3 years ago. Like, we would be cancelled now, right? Like, the world changes, and how you and I have got away with some of the things that we have in the political climate. I'm very fortunate. I think it's a testament to the relationship that we both have, but also who we are as individuals and whatnot. And I don't really know where I was going with that. So
I think
Well, Joe,
I
we gotta
definitely
cut.
agree.
We gotta cut the butt slap from LPL 2021. Just take it out of the open.
I think so.
Kiss me,
I think
Dagda.
so.
Yeah, I definitely agree though. This is something I've said a couple of times now, especially when it comes to players and broadcast talent and personalities within the scene and their relationship with Reddit and with Twitter. Inevitably, this relationship becomes more and more I forget the word. There's a word for it. Parasocial, that's the word. Where it's like Twitter and Reddit receive a ton of footage of what these people are like on camera, right? And what these people present to the world.
Yeah.
Right? And thousands of people are seeing this footage. Streamers are the best example of this, right? But it's true of all broadcasters that are on a regular basis. And it becomes a very dangerous relationship, especially for the streamer, if you take social media too seriously and their opinions of you too seriously on a personal level. And the bigger this industry becomes and the bigger these personalities become, the bigger of an issue this becomes as well. And I think that we are getting to a stage now where some of the larger personalities do need to remember that this is showbiz at the end of the day. Even streaming on Twitch, to an extent, this is entertainment. People turn on Twitch in the same way that people 10 years ago used to turn on reality television, right? So you do have to bear in mind that not everyone on Reddit and not everyone on Twitter is a fan of yours in the way that you classically think about it, like it was 5 years ago, right? Like, not every fan is a positive fan anymore. A lot of fans are there to watch when you fail and to cheer that when you fail. And you have to be able to separate yourself from that. And I think that's becoming more and more important in the current climate. And I think it will inevitably inevitably become more and more important. And maybe
But I also-
maybe the drama we get is whose social media manager is getting fired instead of who's getting fired.
I do also think that that's a symptom of like the way a lot of people come up in this industry, right? Like you start off super, super small. You've got like 10, 20 viewers, or like you come from your hometown or like your home region, and it's just like, hey, that's the guy I know. Good job. Keep going. You're going to be great. Sorry, I went to cut out a bit, but that's the where you've kind of grown from. And even if you look at these mega streamers, they all started with 20, 30 viewers, who was, you know, George, who's been super supportive of me this entire time. And then you grow and you grow. And I think it becomes a little bit daunting where you have that sudden explosion. And then suddenly you're faced with a lot more backlash than you've ever really experienced before, because a lot of the people, it was like one guy in chat or two people in chat. And now it's suddenly a lot more of the internet that's in your corner of the internet.
Yeah.
But it's important to then be like true to yourself, right? I've had some pretty strict rules on how I interact, and even though portion of my pessimistic soul is not on broadcast for everybody, I've made a very active decision from very early on that my social media is 100% me. All the travels, all the wife photos, all the dog photos. You know, I share a lot. I meet people and they know a lot about me. You know, how was your holiday to there and there? What did you think of that restaurant? And I've had to kind of learn, oh, I'm sharing this, right? Don't be weird by it. Only time I did that was when somebody went, is that APPA? And, oh, you're Quickshot. I went, no. Motherfucker, that's the other way around. I am Quickshot, and is that APPA? I'm like, you do not start with the dog.
That is the beauty of it,
very
though.
cute dog.
It is a cute dog, that is true. But I mean, to wrap up, I guess this point, we can just not read Twitter and Reddit.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's not.
You and I can't, but other people could.
Sure, I mean, I'm a sucker for it, you know,
Exactly.
like, and I get my fair share of flame from time to time, and I take it all in. You know, I think when you work for a team as well, everyone has an opinion about your team. Everyone has an opinion about the players you acquire. Everyone has an opinion about the results you end up getting as a team, what your org is doing, and so on. And naturally, as a public brand, you get linked to everything, and I think that's part of the job. And I found myself enjoying even the negative conversations, because it's people discussing something that you're part of. And yet, does it suck sometimes to read that someone hates it? Yes. But at the same time, this is someone who's taking his time to actually talk about it. And you could, if you wanted to, have a conversation. You know, you could jump in and say, oh, hang on, I just want to explain this. You know, like roster building is a great example where every offseason, or honestly, at any point during the year, people will talk about rosters and players. And people have no insight into how does a roster get built, because no one is giving them this insight. No one is filming it. No one is showcasing it. But like, you know, you can have 4 coaches. You can have 9, 10 players spending hours and hours and hours. There's the dog, by the way. So now this point doesn't matter because everyone is just going to look at the dog. But as it is, like, so you can have all these people who are spending their entire life on just studying this, decide on certain players. And then you will get met by someone on Twitter who's just watching casually, who's like, I hate this person. This is the dumbest decision I've ever seen in my life. Screw everything about you and this team and this and this and this. And that's part of the sport, because everyone does that about every sport. Like, I watch NFL a lot, and literally the Reddit for NFL is just this. It's just memes. It's just people going crazy about players. Like, that's just part of it. And if you don't want to read it, don't read it. Literally just don't. You can
Dude, I need to jump in. Do you know one of my favorite memories ever? And this is so fucking dark, and it so should not have happened. China for Worlds and the top 20 list.
Oh God.
And it caused so much controversy that once the clip dropped, and I correct me if I'm wrong, was it between play-ins or groups? But it came out like we were in China, and I think it was during play-ins.
Wasn't it after groups when we did the recap of?
So between groups and quarters then.
Yeah. Which year is this?
It's 2017?
16, 17.
17, because I'm pretty sure
one of the years where TSM sucked.
And I believe it was you, Jat, Papa Smithy
Yes.
on the top 20. I can't remember if there was anybody else,
No,
but
that was it.
the fans
Oh, I do
reacted
remember,
and
yes.
they disagreed with the logic and the decision. There was a podcast and a list that came out.
Yes.
Now, Martin and I read every comment, okay? And up to this point now, I had found a part in my personal career where I could walk away from Reddit at the time and be like, I will go read it when I have time. Right now, I've got a job to do. Martin is not yet there in his career. So this thing drops. Reddit fucking explodes, right? Martin has not been hated this much in years, right? Since the potato was surgically implanted from his mouth. And I sat at dinner listening to Deficio, Jet, and Papa Smithy discussing social media strategy, how they wanted to respond, what was fair, what wasn't fair. And I just savored every bite, watching Martin continuously scrolling, refresh, scrolling, refresh. And it took a few days for you to kind of process this and get through it. But watching somebody that I love so much that knows better, at the time, Martin knew. Everybody said, hey, dude, just leave it for now. You can't change it now. Like, deal with it later. And he would look everyone in the eyes and go, I'm fine. We're like, I know you are, but you are addicted to this game, this social behavior.
It's true. It was so 90% of it was about Bjergsen.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Where
it's coming back. There.
Yeah,
Bjergsen was like high up on the list, right?
So on the original list, so each one of us made a list, and if I remember 100% correctly, Jad had Bjergsen rated the highest, and I had him in the middle of us, and Papa Smithy had him like just maybe like in the list. If I remember 100% correctly.
It averaged out.
It averaged out to him being like 10th or something, which obviously shouldn't have been the case, or 12th, whatever it was, something like that. So that was the initial one, which there was more debate than there was flame. There was some flame for sure, but there was more
but it was
debate.
fairly healthy.
Yeah,
right?
It was okay. It was okay. And then after groups, TSM had sucked. Again, it was in China, by the way. It was China. We got the chance to revisit our list and record that as content and decide if we wanted to move certain players, what we wanted to do. And the thing that we did, so both me and Jad walked away from the groups being like, TSM was really bad, but Bjergsen was actually pretty good. So I don't remember what Jad put him. I just remember I put Bjergsen like 20th on my list after groups. So he was still on my list. He was just at the bottom.
Yeah.
And Papa Smithy had removed him from his list. And it got released. And this was the true TSM hate hype train. So when people saw that in the average list after the changes, he was still in there, people just lost it.
They lost it completely.
They lost it. And it was like, people just went crazy. They even went crazy on Papa Smithy, even though he was technically put him outside. Because he was just part of it. He put him like 24th or something. I don't remember what it was. But obviously there was a lot on Jad because he was the NA caster, right? So it was like NA bias, these kind of things. And it was a lot on me as well for being super biased on Bjergsen, which to be fair, I mean, there was definitely some bias, but people also really wanted this Bjergsen conversation. Either you loved him and you wanted him on the list and
one
he had
or the
to
other,
be there, or you absolutely hated this and he should just never be on this list. He was like the most talked about name. Yeah. Man, I remember that was a meltdown.
It was insane. And it's one of those things where I would not make this joke with anybody else, but I know Martin really well. And I know how he and I interact with these types of things, right? And also, we're very, I think we're very proud, not braggy, but I think we're proud of where we are and what we've done. And like we've done a lot of work. So when you see people misquoting you or misinterpreting, or there's a level of responsibility where you're like, whoa. I don't want to tell you you've heard it wrong, but how I read what you've written makes me think that maybe you skipped around a little or missed something, or like, you just you feel like ownership of things that you say and do.
Don't ever misquote people.
No,
yeah.
Don't misquote people.
Even just on Twitter, it's so frustrating when you see some, like, I will tweet something about a player that's a little controversial. The replies will be like, "What? How can you think this guy's bad?" I'm like, I never said he's bad.
Sure.
I said he had a bad game, or I said he's overrated, like, because everyone thinks he's the best player in the entire world. Like, fucking read
It's-
read the tweet you're replying to. What are you saying?
I also see like some topic about a player, you know, and then someone will just go in and write, oh yeah, I know that teams don't like this player for X reason. Zero source, zero insight, nothing. And then people just latch onto that as if that is now true. That is now a fact. They don't like this player because he wears a too big of a shoe or whatever. And then that's now the conversation. And just like, no one has ever said that. You have no insight into this. Stop saying this. You're just spreading a false narrative.
Yeah.
All right, now we're watching a show.
It's the dog show now. It's the dog show.
I
I feel sorry
It
for
is.
the people on Spotify.
Unfortunately, it's bedtime for Grandpa over here. Sit. So I don't know how well you
You're
can
the
hear
dog.
this, but APPA, wait. Oh. Hey. Give me a high five. Okay. Boop. Wait. Boop. Thank you. Wait. Boop. Thank you.
So for anyone that can't hear that's listening on Spotify, currently Quickshot is getting APPA to do tricks for us.
Oh yes.
If you really want to see this, go on
Paul?
YouTube, watch it because it's
Paul?
hilarious. It's adorable.
Thank you. So she's not particularly well trained, but yeah, unfortunately, like 11 p.m. is my bedtime. So
No problem.
I'm gonna
no
head to
problem.
bed soon.
We will
No,
wrap up
wait.
the show then.
Wait.
So there was a question in chat earlier that I just want to quickly hit on, if that's okay, before we close out the show.
Yeah.
So Ellie in chat asked, what was the thing for you guys that first got you into shoutcasting? Because I think that's a common ground for all of us, and we can hit on that, and then we can close out the show. So we can go and whatever. Dagda, you've not spoken in a little while, so do you want to start off?
So what got me into shoutcasting was I told this story on your stream actually. I didn't want to get into shoutcasting, but I just finished Screw It, Let's Do It by Richard Branson.
Blink
And my
twice if
friend
you
came-
need help.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was I read this book and I was like, say yes, and then figure out how to do it later. And my friend who had met through, I used to play competitively for my college, was like, look, we're struggling for a color caster. Any chance you want to fill in? And every part of me was like, don't do it. You're going to make a fool out of yourself. It's going to be horrible. You're not going to like it. And I was like, I've only just finished this book. There's not a hope I can then turn down the first opportunity that walks in the door. So I was like, right, I'll say yes and I'll just do it. I was like, okay. And they came back to me and were like, you actually weren't terrible. I was like, well, that's 10 times better than I expected. So they're like, have you any interest in doing this again? I was like, yeah, it actually was quite fun. And then from that point, I kind of just rolled with it. And I started doing some stuff in Ireland, which then very luckily the Dublin office was beside us. So a few riders were by to see the casts and the streams and everything, which then led to me meeting Munch in ESL UK because I went over to do my first international show over there, which then led to Ragnarok, which was a Swedish event that was running, which led me to EU Masters. So I that was my stepping stones along the way. But my first intro to it, I was like, I don't want to do this at all. This is going to go horrifically. And I was like, screw it, I'll give it a shot. And I loved it. So I just stuck with it.
Well, I guess we'll go around the circle. That makes the best sense. So, Deficio, do you want to go next?
I would say a mix of luck and riot desperation.
Drinking
is
in
how
Cologne is in there as well.
I would put it up. Yeah, so end of 2013, we were supposed to go to Worlds, if you ask me. But my insanely good top laner, Extinct, had quit to study. Shortly before
Heartbroken.
playoffs.
Would have been the world's best top laner.
He was insane.
Mhm.
And we had to pick up a solo queue player who only played Rengar and Evelynn top at the time, but he was like rank 3, so we gave him a chance. He didn't do anything wrong, he was just not ready. So we didn't go to Worlds. I then received an email from Bridget, who was the player manager at the time in Riot, for Riot NA. And she said, hey, you know, we met a couple of times. Yeah, at Boogaloo, as an example. And also, you've obviously done a lot of interviews on broadcast. You've done some things with the casters. We're looking for pro players who want to go to LA for Worlds and do interviews and content as part of the Worlds broadcast. This was the time when Riot had unlimited money and they didn't have anyone overseeing their finances. So they just spent money. So
Not quite as simple, but it does sound much sexier.
That sounds like vainglory to me. But that's
so-
a different conversation.
different times than what it is now. I initially said no, and then I was just sitting at home being sad because we didn't make Worlds. And my mom said to me, "Why on earth wouldn't you go? Like, are you stupid? Like, just take the trip, go there, enjoy it. You're just sitting here being miserable. I don't want to look at you." So I came back to Riot and said, "Okay, fine, I'll do it." And they flew me and a bunch of other pro players. Snoopy, Voyboy was there, Ocelot, bunch of pros at the time. And there we did the content, and then very randomly, this is where the luck part comes in. I think it was Jet. Jet decided that because back then they were doing double play-by-play, one color caster as the TriCast.
I need to add on to this.
Okay, maybe someone else said
No,
something.
no.
Anyways, how I remember was Jad came in and he said, "We need to find a pro player who can be on the caster desk with us for pick and ban phase." And they picked Snoopy, Voyboy, and myself as the three guys they wanted to test for this. So they brought us to the office. Bear in mind, Riot had booked us like 3 weeks to be in LA for like 2 content shoots, and they paid for everything. So that's what I meant with this different times. So we were just there chilling, and they were like, "Hey, you want to come to the office and you want to try this thing?" And so we did. We didn't really know what it actually led to. So we just did. We did a pick and ban phase with Jet. That was it. And I think there was some producers in there, some other casters. And then after they came to us and said, "Okay, guys, so here's what we're going to do. Snoopy and Voyboy, you each get a semifinal, and Deficio, you will get the final. You did a great job." And I was like, "Okay, what?" So now I was supposed to be on the finals broadcast. I didn't even know what that meant really until rehearsal day in Staples Center 2013, when they gave me a chair right outside of the camera angle of the caster desk. And they said, when the casters wave you in, you just move your chair in and you sit there and take the headset on. So I did. We did the pick and ban phase. People liked it, I guess. It went well. It was very easy because, again, they were used to having double play-by-play and just Jad alone. So I just talked. And after the show was over, full Stable Center, by the way, completely new for League of Legends. Biggest final at the time, crazy. And you can still find a clip of me in my NIP jersey sitting there looking stupid. After
Looking
the show,
afraid, not stupid.
Yeah, okay, afraid.
Not stupid.
After the show was over, Waylon, who was the head of esports, came up to me and he was like, "Hey, great job, man. Well done." And I was like, "I have no idea who you are. Thank you." And that was it. I have no idea who he was. And I just, that was it. The show was over. I flew back home. Had completely planned I was going to run the team in NIP. We were signing Nuke Duck, of course, Mithy, Sora Zero, old school name for the people who remember him. We were going to have the super team in NIP. We were all in Sweden. I was the manager. I was committed to that. That was it. That was what I wanted to do. I didn't want to play. This was it. This way, again, another luck part comes in. That was the part in LA, and then there's this. Waylon calls me and says, "We have let one of our color casters go. We need a color caster. You were on the broadcast. Do you want to come down and do these TriCasts and potentially be part of it?" And I just said no. I said, "Nope,
Yep.
not interested."
We were so pissed. We were so pissed.
I was like, "I'm just not interested." And a couple of weeks went by, and I was talking to Heaton. For all the Counter-Strike fans, obviously one of the most legendary 1.6 players and the owner of NIP. And I just brought this up to him. I was like, "Yeah, Riot was asking me if I maybe want to be a caster, but it's not for me. I can't do it. I've never casted in my life. The language, everything." And he just looked at me and he was just like, "You're so stupid." just like my mom. And he was like, "You have to do this. Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Wait, do you mean this? Like, I'm working for you. Like, are you sure?" He's like, "You have to go. We're going to be fine. You have to do it." And I called Waylon and I was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry I turned this down. Is there any chance I can still do it?" And he was like, "Yes, when can you be in Cologne?" And then the promo tournament that we were going to play was in Cologne as well. So the deal was that after promo tournament was over, I would go to the ESL office with Trevor and D-Man, and we would practice cast. And I went there, I practice cast. I thought it was terrible. I don't even know what happened there. And the next thing I know is I'm being told you have to fly to LA right after New Year's. You have to fly to LA. So I fly to LA. Again, I'm clueless. I have no idea what's happening. And I do interviews with like 12, 13 different writers from the top boss to the casters. And I do a practice cast and everything. And I still have no idea what I'm actually doing. I just know that it's for the potential broadcast. And my final interview is with JP, who's the producer of EU LCS at the time. He's an amazing, beautiful, fantastic man. And I ate IHOP in the morning when I got there. I have to add this part of the story.
IHOP is great, but
IHOP is where happiness goes to die.
I was eating IHOP. It was in the morning. I had to go to the interview. I was very jet lagged. And when I get to the final interview with JP, and again, I don't really know who he is. I just know he's this Riot NA guy. My stomach is like blah, 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 from the IHOP and the jet lag. So I start the interview by saying, I'm so sorry. I have to run to the bathroom. Like, I can't hold it. I can't hold it. So I ran to the Riot bathroom, where they play sick music, by the way. Really, really fantastic in this situation. And this poor guy is following me, and he's waiting outside the bathroom. And I'm just like, I'm dying. Like, it's horrible.
Thank God there's music.
Great music. Again, great music. And he's such a sweetheart, and he just waits outside for like 15 minutes or something like this. And I come out, and I'm just dying. And then we go and we have the interview. And at the end of the interview, he just says, here's the script. You're on for week 1. You're gonna be like, this is your test. And he gave me the full script of the show. And again, I was like, I left LA not actually understanding. I just interviewed to be a full-time rioter. I thought I was just like interviewing to become like a test caster or something. So when we did week 1 of the LEC or LCS, and it was horrible. Day 1 was terrible. Everyone flamed me. Day 2 was slightly better. Day 3 was slightly better. At the end of day 3, Riot was like, dude, you're gonna get there. We like what we're seeing. Here's a full-time contract to be a rioter. And I was like, what's happening? I just signed it. Okay, sign it. And that was it. That's it's luck and desperation from Riot, I guess.
I cannot believe you just put on camera an explosive diarrhea story for your interview process. Martin, I love you, dude. I absolutely love you.
It's one of the things I remember the most, man.
I'm a little disappointed that the guy that interviewed you didn't finish out like, try not to shoot yourself on broadcast.
Yeah,
like that would have been the perfect way.
He's too nice.
Listen. Just so you know, okay, for anybody that is listening, please head to the following website, thunderdikk, DIKK.com. It is one of the bands that JP Ship was in. He's a hardcore metalhead musician. He plays fantastic music. And him and his old band they used to play together. It's old like hair metal. It's awesome. Thunderdikk with 2Ks.com. I can't follow that story, and I'll do a much more abridged version. Also, it's my fucking bedtime. I need to go to bed.
Yeah, no worries.
But the long story short is I've been involved in esports either playing or like I had teams, and I worked for a marketing company in South Africa. I hosted events and whatnot. So I've got a Bachelor of Commerce in Marketing and Business Management. I was like, I'm going to be a salesman. The only thing I'm good at is talking shit. And from a very young age, my family used to say that I could sell ice to an Eskimo. Why is my camera out of focus? So I was like, I got to do something with my voice. 2011, I'm working a job in Berlin. I'm watching a lot of League of Legends. I'm playing a lot of League of Legends. My boss yells at me because I have 2 screens and I'm doing like events and player support for a game called War 2 Glory. It's awful. Don't go play it. It sucks. And while I'm doing this, my boss comes over and goes, what the fuck? Why is there always this game on your screen? What is this? I'm like, it's League of Legends, Rania. I'm so sorry. She's like, why are you always watching this? What is this nonsense? Anyway, she tells me in front of the whole room. I'm hanging my head in shame. I close the stream. Somebody comes over and goes, by the way, like my boyfriend runs a video game company. He wants to learn about this game. I went to go have lunch with the guy. Turns out he was the managing director of Freaks for You Gaming, which is a white label esports company. And during lunch, These are the exact words he said to me. Trevor, you talk so much shit. Have you thought about commentating? And initially I thought it was an insult. It then turned into like, hey, have you considered it? So we talked a little bit. I quit my job. I joined Freaks on the promise that I'd develop and find my way to shoutcasting. And very, very fortunately, with my like experience as a player and a viewer and my business background, I had very specific branding goals. At the beginning of this fucking podcast, Martin said Trevor casted every single thing under the sun, and he branded himself as that South African guy. My branding and the times I've told the story are so good that even Martin is selling my shit for me, right? Right? And literally, it was my plan. At the time, I specifically wore Star Wars things, and like when I didn't wear a Star Wars thing, there was a subreddit thread in the top 10 that said that South African guy is not wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. It was a much smaller world. It was a lot simpler over time. And I was very, very fortunate that within 9 months of my very first shoutcast in 2012, I was hired by Riot Games in January of 2013. So my journey got started by being yelled at publicly in an office and somebody else then going, fucking hell, mate, can you just shut up? And I went, nope, I'll make this my job. And 8 years later, I'm still doing it.
What a beautiful story. All right, well, I guess we
Do you
saw
have diarrhea?
No,
Never,
mine came
ever.
much
slightly
later
different,
in life.
slightly different.
Mine came much
tones.
later in life, and I tell you what, like from Munch and Dagda, you should get Deficio and I back to share some shit stories on a like X-rated version of this podcast. We'll save this for many years down the line once we get PR approval, because we've got a few stories to share.
Well, Grabs and Peter Dunn wanted a repeat episode in 6 months, so maybe we could book you guys in as well or something. We'll see. Yeah, my startup story is very vanilla. I basically just was watching you guys, and I was like, hey, that looks really fun, and I'm definitely not good enough to be a pro. I'm just gonna do that instead, and I started casting university esports. So literally the most vanilla possible story.
But also
available.
really inspirational.
Counts for the same, man.
Dude, you're now casting LPL. I'm going to leave you on one last quote. I love inspirational quotes. In my job, I try to do them.
Which is why he says, don't be shit the first time you meet him.
Not the first time. Oi. Listen. Go sooo. I say that to professionals just before you go on air. The very first time that you're about to go on air, the very last thing I will say to you is don't be shit. But the quote I want to leave everybody with, and this I saw it was an edit on Reddit on a Pokemon picture of Ash Ketchum, and he was looking at the Elite Four, and the quote read, train until your idols become your rivals and then beat them. And that stuck with me forever, for absolutely ever and ever. And I just love everything about it. Train until your idols become your rivals and then beat them. And that just means you guys are coming for our jobs.
Yeah.
Well, my
don't
job,
worry, I'm
God,
working
I
on it,
fucking
mate. I'm
quit,
working
so-
on
We're
it.
all on the way. We're all
I
going.
left before you could become my rival. Suck it.
Mate, I'm
I've got a
gonna be
business degree. I
director
can become a
of some
director.
of the European team. Yeah.
Come
All
on,
right.
man.
We're gonna wrap up the episode then. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. It's been honestly, this is one of the episodes that me and Dagda talked about months and months and months ago before we even started the show. So it's been absolutely an honor to have you on. But with that, we're going to end out episode 9. Thank you everyone very much for watching. It's going to be on Spotify and YouTube, so check it. Just search Bevvies with the Boys on each of those mediums. With that, we'll close out the show. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Cheers. Thunderdikk.com. Go check it out.